What is up, RotoGrinders? Good morning. Start at 2.5+ hours, my UCF math, taking you guys all the way up to kickoff, a little bit beyond 1 o'clock as well. NFL Week 11. We got Kirkwood. He's always here. He's the constant, but late swapped in here at the last second. Chopper of heads, the winner of Millionaire Makers. Won $1 million several times. I don't think you've done it yet this year, Chop. You're due, I suppose, to win another million in football. I said to you, we never see you on a Sunday. This is like your day off. They're paying you triple or quadruple overtime. And you got to work with me too, which is never your favorite thing. But I'm happy to see you, Chop. And you also said before the show started, you got a couple things on your mind you want to get off your chest. So the floor is yours. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, you wonder why I don't do Sunday morning shows. I log in and producer Steve's laying down in bed, all sprawled out, all like, what the world is going on here? I don't need to see all this, Steve.
Wait. Now, wasn't there a bottle of lotion next to him too?
I kind of tuned out when I seen
there was a bottle of lotion right there too. It was
trying
weird.
to go all sexy
really
on us in bed. I was, oh man, what's going on here? So that threw me off. But I don't know, Dean. Lots of stuff going on here. I got called up from the bullpen. Speaking of bullpens, Dean.
Yeah.
I got to give a little shout out. Come on, Dean. Who's the world champs, Dean?
I mean, yeah.
Dean, give it to me, Dean. Who's the world champs?
The Astros are a very good team, man. You guys are, hell of a year. Congratulations.
Shit pumped everybody, Dean. The Yankees, the Mariners, and then these other dudes come from the National League. Dean, I also want to give a shout out to Yuli Gurriel, who you said was washed. He only hit 347 with 2 homers, 2 stolen bases, a double. 490 slug in the postseason,
That's what you got good BVP against the Phillies.
49 at bats. He struck out 1 time, Dean, in the entire.
He pops out and grounds out. It's fabulous.
You know what stuck out to me though, Chop?
What was that?
Is that Verlander had a 2-mile-per-hour increase in his fastball in
Did you see him in Game 5? He was pumping that thing he was averaging 2.5 miles more per hour. Crazy, man, just crazy.
He's gonna look great in the Dodger uniform next year.
They can have him for 3 years, $140 million. They can have him, but
the Mets might as well sign him.
Yeah, I'd swap DeGrom and Verlander right about now if we can pull that off financially. But yeah, Dean, we got a little Sunday morning action here. We'll see how it goes here. I don't know. I'm already off to a weird start seeing Steve in a prone position like that.
How's Yeah, it threw me off for a second too. He was comfortable. He was like paint me like one of your French girls. That's how he was posing, right? Like Titanic style.
No, the George Costanza.
It was reminiscent of Costanza.
Chop, how's the NFL season treated you so far this year?
NFL has been pretty much terrible, Dean. I have to say, I'm like every once in a while, I'll get challenged for a head-to-head, and so I'll play head-to-head, but that's very rare. Usually it's just GPPs, right? So GPPs, there's no way I am going to be successful when all this chalk hits so often. Like it's just hitting more and more, it seems like, especially as the year goes on. So I don't know. We got to swing that a little bit. I need the chalk not to hit as much. I need the highest owned quarterback not to break the slate and things like that. So we'll see if that can change today.
Hey, yeah, this is the day for it. We normally go position by position. Kirkwood, I like the way we did it last week, just like a conversation as far as a slate, whatever the chat kind of throws out there, whatever comes up organically. I prefer that flow personally. I don't know. What do you think, Kirkwood? Just conversation style, or you want to just go?
Chop's a big organic guy, so he likes that. You're speaking his language right there, but. What did we do? We
just had a free-flowing conversation, and I thought it worked better. And we talked about the important stuff as opposed to spending 15 minutes in quarterback that, at the end of the day, we're just it's just these 4 guys.
I didn't even notice. The only thing I noticed about last week is that the season-long questions have been down. So everybody get those season-long questions in. We got Chop. Chop is one of the best season-long players in the business. Sharpest season-long guys we've had. So get these season-long questions in. I want to see them all.
If you listen to his podcast, the OG podcast, he always tell the people about how his season-long team is doing. And what is it, 20 years going? How long have you had your season-long league going there, Chopper?
This is I think this is year 24.
Yeah, that's
and
wild.
I just made a big trade last week, Dean. The guy panicked. The guy panicked on Josh.
Don't tell us what you got. Just tell us the both pieces, and me and Kirkwood will tell you the better side if you got screwed or not.
Okay. Well, I already gave it away, but
the
players involved Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Joe Burrow.
No, I mean, tell me the two. What side?
Josh Allen and Jay Taylor versus Burrow and Saquon.
I mean, I want the Taylor Allen side. What do you want, Kirkwood?
Yeah, same. But I haven't looked at schedules going forward, so I'm behind. I don't really.
Well, you're not the best season-long player. This is the reason why you're not the best season-long player of all time.
I've been looking at the. See, I always think the playoffs are a foregone conclusion, so I started looking at the matchups around week 2 or week 3. Week 3, I started looking at the matchups for the playoffs. So I knew I already wanted to dump Burrow. I didn't want him in the playoffs. So, there was a little bit of dark cloud around Josh Allen, and the guy panicked and. I maneuvered in. I said,
took advantage.
Are you ready? Are you ready to trade Josh Allen? We don't know about this elbow. And he's oh my God, I better do it. I like Saquon. I said, you can have Saquon for the right price. And I got him, Dean. I got him.
That's predatory behavior right there.
You're an apex predator, Chop. That's inappropriate. Why are you taking
it's not the first time he's been called a predator of sorts before, but
yeah, Jesus. Why he woke up this morning for us and you're taking shots. We could have been stuck with nobody. Could just the two of us. It could have been Grant potentially. I think he was in the conversation as well. Chops, being decent. This is why he doesn't show up. He's not going to come back anymore if he's treated like this.
Well, I'm not going to come back anytime soon. But it's not because of the way I'm being treated right now. It's just because it's Sunday morning and I kind of prefer to be.
I have a question.
When I like to do other things.
Did you have to do this? Are you on standby and you have to do this if there's no one else available, or did you voluntarily do this?
No, I don't have to do. I could definitely say no. It was just a question in Slack. Okay. Bobby can't quite make it. Can somebody step up and do it? So
and you're the man. What a guy. What a guy.
You got to do it. You got to do it if people need you. You got to be there for them.
Kirkwood, you did the rundown on your Tournament Takes podcast with Bobby. And JSU, let's do the rundown as far as.
So you didn't listen this week, obviously.
Was he not in this week? I didn't get a
chance. JSU couldn't make it. He was.
Who was on it? Was Chop on that too?
No, it was just me and Bobby.
Oh, okay.
But so I caught you.
Yeah. Anyway. Hey, I'm on standby if you need a third. I'm available. Typically.
All right, I would have done that in a heartbeat. But we also we didn't record until Saturday. We did it Saturday morning.
Yeah, I mean, if my schedule allows.
Dean, also speaking of podcasts and stuff, can't let you slide here. I noticed on this week's podcast you had some disparaging things to say about San Antonio, Texas, Dean. Oof. Or not podcast, but your show there with Daigle.
No. I mean, first of all, I don't besmirch them nearly as much as Charles Barkley does. Take shots at him too. You'll punch up. But
he's trying to deflect right there.
I see that.
The XFL
sickening.
The XFL, and thank you for listening to the podcast. So the Pick Six podcast with myself, Daigle, and Rebar. Those guys are really, really sharp Wednesday nights. So we were going through somehow XFL came up organically, and the San Antonio XL franchise is called the Brahmas. And I wasn't taking a shot. I just thought that had to be inspired by The Rock, aka the Brahma Bull, who owns the XFL. I don't know how that's a shot, Chop. I've been to San Antonio. Actually, San Antonio was nice. I enjoyed the
somebody chimed in that San Antonio was a terrible place.
That wasn't me. That was somebody else.
You were hosting the thing.
No.
I gotta blame you for it.
I can't correct somebody else's opinion.
San Antonio is a fantastic place to fantastically family-oriented place to come and raise kids. I think it's phenomenal. So I think great. Yeah. And then on top of all that stuff, Dean, it's just a really nice. The one thing I'll say about San Antonio that I don't like is the allergies. But other than that, it's just a great place, man. Just great. I couldn't imagine living in a New York where you're just elbow to elbow with your neighbors and everything. I like a little room.
That's the city you're talking about, but yeah.
There's allergy stuff everywhere.
I like San Antonio. Well, yeah, you're right. There's probably allergies in other places that allergies to different things. San Antonio's got the worst pollen, man.
Yeah, we got a lot of pollen.
It's all good though. But I mean, it's a great place. I can't believe the guys on your show.
It was John or Rich. I can't remember which one. And I actually said, you know what? I like San Antonio in my little small sample size. I was defending. I was on your side. You got to listen better, Chop. I was frozen.
Trust me, you're lucky I listened at all. Dean.
All right. The people want to. Jetty Girl has already asked which two to start today in season long.
All right.
Damian Pierce, James Conner, Devin Singletary, or Tony Pollard. I do want to put out that Zeke is back, but they said he's going to have a light load today, work him back in. So just keep that in mind if you didn't hear that. All right. But which would you recommend for Jetty Girl? Dan has Pitt. He could. Jetty Girl could put Pittman in the flex.
You're going to have to run that one by me again.
Damian Pierce, James Conner, Singletary, or Tony Pollard.
Just one?
Yeah.
Two.
Or could go Pittman in the flex. Oh,
two.
Okay. Two. Sorry.
Those first two. Two would be. I mean, Pollard. With Zeke back, I worry. And then Pittman, I don't know about that one.
I think Singletary could be good.
That's your
Singletary is the thing about Singletary is like I just don't trust that he has any upside at all. Like you couldn't get a better nut beginning to your day than last week, where you scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. You could potentially break the slate.
Did nothing after that. 17
points, less than 17 is what you. I just don't believe that any running back in Buffalo has without any injuries happening anytime soon. I don't think there's any upside there. So I at least want a little bit of upside. So I want to chase like a Pierce and Conner. Conner's back
in the dome with the best possible matchup.
Well, they cut Benjamin too. Like that backfield is clearly his.
Yes, Conner's a no-brainer. Then it would be between Pierce and probably Pierce and Pollard, because Pollard actually has upside even with a little bit of Zeke there. But Pierce has a strong workload. Singletary, I know it's in a dome. I know it's in that dome environment and all that. I just think that best serves Josh Allen doing more. So, like, what is Singletary? Heck, he scored 2 touchdowns last week. Is he going to try to top it and go 3 or 4 touchdowns today? So I just don't like. I marked him off of my DFS list already. I don't even want one lineup with Singletary in there. And maybe this is the game he goes 400 yards and gets in the end zone twice too. But I'll take my chances.
Hey, Kirkwood, team, 0 teams, 11 game slate above 50 is, well, I guess no game, above 50 total. The closest we got now is Buffalo. Of course, y'all aware at this point, Buffalo has since moved to Detroit, playing in the Dome. It's a neutral site game, although basically like they sold a pile of tickets and almost all of them are from Bills fans. Bills fans are going to Detroit. So it's essentially going to be a home game for Buffalo in Detroit, in the Dome, perfect environment. That total jumped up, 6 points since that move, like 49.5 to 49.5.
It's actually a 50.5, Dean.
Is it 50.5 now? Okay, so it's crept up even higher. Chicago, Atlanta, we were talking about this earlier in the week. It's really weird that this is one of the more appealing games from a total perspective because these are 2 teams just want to run the ball and kill the clock. I don't love that as a game to to shoot out. It certainly can, but Mariota and Fields aren't really quarterbacks that shoot out quarterbacks. Of course, Fields can just bust off 70-yard runs because that's what he does every single week. We are without value, Kirkwood. It's FanDuel. It's much easier to make lineups than it is on DK. DK, you're just going to hate your lineups unless you have low expectations. Tell me otherwise because, it's just hard to find value plays this week. I understand DK raises the prices on players that are doing better. They tend to not lower the ones that are doing bad, and it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. We no longer have those 3K running backs that we had a couple years ago that really opened things up. There's really nothing like running back outside of below 5,500 or 56 or 57. Tell me how we're saving salary today, or your slate overview, because I'm not having a good time making lineups in DraftKings.
Correct. It's a challenging week for sure. And that could be good. It could mean that this is the week where the chalk doesn't smash and people get rewarded for that. But, it is tough to build lineups. The thing about it is, there's a high discrepancy in the totals. So we have those 3 marquee games pretty much anywhere from 48.5 to 50.5, which is Browns, Bills, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, Minnesota. And Dallas and Minnesota could go either way in my book. That game could pop off. That game could also be a defensive battle and a slower paced game, in my opinion. But I definitely could see it going both ways. So I won't be shocked either way. But, so we've got these high-end quarterbacks, right? So we've got Josh Allen in the Dome, 8,500. So right off the bat, it's going to be, we're just going to be spending a lot at quarterback. We don't have that 5,600 smash play. Some people are going down. Like I've heard things like some people want to actually play Daniel Jones. God help them, but for 5,700. But anyways, we've got Justin Fields is now priced kind of like just beyond that elite tier. So he's at 7,600. We also have other elite quarterbacks that aren't going to get a lot of ownership that are expensive as well and deserve to be expensive, with Lamar Jackson, albeit he hasn't really done much since the first 3 games of the season. He's kind of fallen off, but it's still in him. And Jalen Hurts at 8,200. So we've got all the top end quarterbacks, and then we go to running back. We've got good running back plays, but they're all expensive. We don't have any warm and fuzzy. The most warm and fuzzy play we have is 6,100 David Montgomery, and that's when Justin Fields is running for 150 yards a game each week, right? So yes, it's a leverage spot. Yes, it's a good spot with Herbert out, but at the same time, that's there's holes to be poked. There's right above him who's going to be chalk, who I've been fading every week as chalk because I just don't think he's on a good offense, and I think that's important, is Dameon Pierce. I will continue to fade Dameon Pierce, but they're going to be the popular ones just because they fit. The higher range is like Saquon in the nut spot, Josh Jacobs in a great spot where he absolutely nuked this team the last time he played them, Joe Mixon coming off of his 58-point game. But if we're going to get lower than that 6,100 David Montgomery to try to make some things fit, we're going to be talking about guys like Brian Robinson. We're going to be talking about guys like Antonio Gibson on the others in the same game, Devin Singletary, which I tried to bring up, right? There is no warm and fuzzy 5 to 6K running back. So then you look at wide receiver, and we've got all the top end wide receivers here. Like, we want to pair. Who do we want to pair with? Josh Allen, Diggs, right? Yeah, we can do Gabe Davis, but it's pretty tough to play Diggs and to have 2 decent running backs. So what are getting spitted out in optimizers? Well, there's a ton of 2 tight end builds happening. I mean, those never feel good. And other than that, then you got to dig down for some cheap wide receiver plays. So we're talking about guys like Paris Campbell's going to be chalk. That seems kind of scary to me. Donovan Peoples-Jones, probably a little bit less owned, but an easy bring back in that game. I kind of like him, to be honest. We do have some good plays. I think they're in there. It's just there's going to be landmines, right? So there's Garrett Wilson, there's Jacoby Myers, there's Nico Collins for even cheaper than Donovan Peoples-Jones. There's a bunch of these small plays that could work.
Sklarnik, is he interesting to some degree?
Yes, I mean why not? And Sklarnik, and then there's also Kendall Hinton from
one-time emergency quarterback.
Yeah. So I mean, there's going to be landmines, but that's going to be the build. You're going to have to get comfortable with something and dig through these cheap wide receivers in order to make these high-end builds work. And a cheap, me personally, we'll get to it, but I'm just going dumpster diving at tight end personally.
Are you playing 2?
Nope, but I am dumpster diving with my 1.
You have a 2.5K tight end?
I do.
Ooh, okay. Oh, it's one of the Eagles, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I don't know which one to play. There's 3, and we'll talk about that. Chop, that was a lot thrown out there. Do you have a general overview? Let me ask you this, Chop. You're locked in on the Cowboys. Is there a chance we still get Pollard 65% of the because the team knows, they can't say it, but they know that Pollard's better than Zeke, although I guess Zeke is a better blocker. What's your read in that situation, and then just anything else that you think is important to note as far as this slate?
Pollard is always a threat, and I would say probably more, just as much, a little bit more today than, let's say the first 6 or 7 weeks of the year where Elliott was in there and relatively healthy, because he'll be the only thing that Elliott should take away from him today is maybe around the goal line. That could be an issue, and that hurts with upside. But Pollard is, he can break it from the 15 or out. He's still a threat to score a touchdown. That's what makes him very, very good. So I kind of still like Pollard today, and maybe we get him and nobody else and other people are off of him because they think Zeke's going to take too much, which I don't think is the case. But yeah, I don't know, Dean. As far as building lineups like Kirk, I haven't tried to build one yet, so I have no idea. I'm usually doing that right now. I'm usually trying to build right now.
Well, thank you for joining us, John. You got time.
Some people do it Saturday night, but Chop blocks off Saturday nights that's bath time, right?
I do take a bath on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Right? 9 p.m. Central Time. I do take a good bath, but yeah,
wait,
Saturday.
You're slotted in for a specific. I have so many questions.
He's like, you can't reach me. He blocks out the world for a couple hours.
Is there music, a podcast?
No.
Is there candles?
No. Actually, what I used to do is sit there, and that's when I would read some articles for the NFL, because college football is wrapping up. So that's when I'd read. But I've learned pretty much now that the articles are, the good ones there's not very many good ones anymore. So I just kind of like sit there and, just watch.
Wow, what a slap in the face to everyone who writes an article at RotoGrinders. Poor TJ over here with his Spidey bombs and.
Oh, my apologies, Spidey bomb. But it's like, it's my personal time. So
wow, we got a question from Jared Barton, friend of the show.
Here we go.
Hat or no hat in bath.
Here we go. There's obviously no hat in bath. I gotta keep the hat on the air so I can remain anonymous in my real life. You guys know this already. Not because I'm losing my hair or anything.
Before you step in, do you go like no cameras?
I don't need to do that, but got to remain anonymous.
You've been spotted in real life, right? Somebody's walked up to you and said, "Hey, you're Headchopper." That's happened before, right?
That's never happened before.
Really? Never.
I've heard people say that's happened to them. I've never had that happen to me. So
I thought the supermarket there was a guy who.
Bert. That was Bert. I think Bert was making that shit up, but but it was Bert. But no, nobody.
Kirkwood, that's happened to you before, right? Somebody spotted you.
In a poker room amongst a bunch of degenerates. Yeah. Actually, no. You want to know what? My guy across the hall from me, in my building where I live, he's like, "Hey, you work for RotoGrinders, don't you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I played some DFS. My friend, he plays a lot of DFS." And, so yeah, it's happened twice.
Chop, what are you running today? You're running a bunch of lineups. You're running like one or two. You're playing FanDuel. You're playing DK. You're playing both. I don't know why in my head I think you more as a FanDuel guy. I guess that's where you've won.
It's because that's where I actually win. And DraftKings, I just kind of donate it all back. But DraftKings will be nothing but GPPs, nothing but individual lineups. And then on FanDuel, I like to go typically 3 lineups hand built in the high dollar GPPs, and then I'll run for their 2 biggest contests. I'll run a bunch of entries in there, but it's kind of where I like to lay it out.
What's your quarterback pool today?
Quarterback pool, it's pretty condensed. Well, I kind of feel like I want to try to jam in the runners, the Allen, Jackson, Hurts, and Fields.
Yeah,
and I'll. Like I said, I haven't built yet, so I don't know how hard that is. But when those 4 are on a slate like this and the matchups aren't bad at all, it's going to be hard for me to see, a lineup with, as we mentioned, let's say Daniel Jones. A lineup with Daniel Jones being, better than a lineup with one of those guys should break the slate at quarterback, I think. So it's pretty condensed pool right there, and I'll figure the rest of it out as we go.
If you play Jones, who do you pair him with? I guess Slayton.
Well, that's the beauty of the style I played. I don't have to pair. If when I'm setting my lineups and my rules and my stuff, I don't have to pay. If a guy doesn't have a Justin Fields, I don't have to force in Mooney or somebody like that. Even Lamar Jackson, he's got one. My general rule of thought is when I start looking at who to pair a quarterback with, if there's only one target in my player pool that I could pair him with, like Lamar Jackson is Mark Andrews, well, then I start to think, do I even need to pair him with one guy? And so a lot of times, if there's only one target that I can pair him with, he might be a guy I don't need to pair with anybody. So like Josh Allen, okay, I can pair him with Davis, Diggs, Dawson Knox, right on down the list, right? So, yeah, I'm going to pair him with somebody. But, the guys like Daniel Jones or Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson, or somebody like that, if there's only one guy to target with him, then I don't have to target anybody with him. I can run him naked, and all this other stuff is just a bunch of nonsense. You have to do this. You have to do this in GPP. You don't have to do anything. You don't, Dean.
Jones can move a little bit too. Like he can run it in theoretically 2 times. You didn't mention a Dak. He's not a running quarterback anymore, I guess, right? He's not in that. I mean,
I do like Dak. He's on that. He's on the outside looking in of those 4 guys, and he's in my player pool. I'll keep him in there. And this has the potential to be a nice game, but it could also turn into a running game on both sides. So he's in my player pool. I definitely like Dak. It's just like he just takes a kind of a step. He's just outside the bubble looking in at those 4 awesome guys. Pelissero
did report that Pollard's expected to get more touches than Zeke for what it's worth. So he could be a sneaky play. And his ownership's like 4% or so, something like that. Now that might change if that news, gets more out there and people start believing it. It's a later game, obviously. And I suppose it's still possible that Zeke doesn't play. We'll see. It's a late, it's a 4:25 game. But as of right now, the expectations are that Zeke will be available. Kirk, what are you holding in as far as your quarterback pool? And in chat, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and feel free to throw some topics out for us to discuss. We're just having an organic conversation, and Erik's going to jump in with SquirrelPatrol, just the 2 of those guys should have a brilliant conversation as well as far as the slate. They'll deep brain it for sure. And then who else do we have on jumping in late? I think it's Andre and Kristi, and I don't know who's the third person is taking you guys home as far as crunch time. Probably TheLuuch. Not certain of that though. But what do we have as far as quarterbacks? Who do you want to add there? Is there somebody you want to stress? Kirkwood? Is there something? We're not playing Russ again, right? We're done with that. That's it. It's over.
I went down hard with Russ last week.
I
do have some plays. So at the top end, obviously Josh Allen. I don't need to go into how he's always a great play. I mean, bad games he has such a rushing floor that bad games for Josh Allen are like the last couple of games, which are like 25 fantasy points.
Yeah.
It's a great matchup against the pass and run, 26 DVOA versus the pass, 32nd against the run and in a dome. So it's going to be tough to get off Josh Allen. Justin Fields, the crazy things that stick out to me, there's only I can't remember where I read this from. It was a tweet. There's only been 9 games ever where QBs have rushed for over 140 yards in the entire NFL. And Justin Fields just did it in back-to-back games. And it's back in a dome. It's a very good matchup for him too, as well. Atlanta, 29 DVOA versus the pass. So is it chasing? Yes. Has he been absolutely lights out for the last 5 games? Yes. Is he getting more confident and the weapons are getting a little bit better for him? Komet's all of a sudden in play now. Mooney, I think Claypool helps Mooney. So there is stuff to like too there. Daniel Jones, I'm out on. I get it. It's Detroit, but they just crush the clock. The Giants, they're so slow. Could he break one? Yeah, it's Detroit, but no, thank you. So if I look at Pro Football Focus, on their matchup advantages, they have 2 of the top wide receiver matchup advantages are in a game where against an incredibly chalky defense today from the wide receiver matchups. So Pittsburgh is going to be the chalk defense on DraftKings today because they're cheap, because they have a defensive line mismatch. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are 2 of the top 5 best matchups per Pro Football Focus for wide receivers today. So also Mixon's going to be popular. So I think Joe Burrow is a phenomenal play in this game, and you can double stack them with Boyd and Higgins. So that's kind of my quarterback.
Would you do that? Not that you can't, but is that something you're stressing to do? Or
I made a lineup like that. Yes, I'm playing some Pitt D2, but I made sure to make my Burrow, Boyd, and T. Higgins stack. Now the thing is who do we run it back with? Do we have to run it back? Najee Harris' report is now that he's going to get the bulk of carries again. He's only 5,500. I wouldn't run it back. I would play him in a lineup with the Steelers D, I guess, but and he's 5,500, and that could work out. And really, for him to work out, he just got to fall in the end zone, right? So I don't know.
You mentioned Pro Football Focus, Harditz. His helicopter last night was Deontay Johnson.
That's why I eliminated him from my pool.
The helicopter play is in the
Ask Chop about the helicopter plays.
Is it running cold, the helicopter?
Hasn't hit since what year? Since Nam?
Well, I know he had a really good run I think a couple of years ago with the helicopter.
Yeah, he was like draft cheat in MMA picks. He started out hot as could be, and then never hit another one.
Michael wants to know if you'd separate Mixon from Burrow. Would you play him in the same lineup? Probably not. You can, but probably not.
I would not play Mixon. You could play Mixon. I get it, but I would not play. I want passing touchdowns. I want even Burrow to run it in himself, which when they get down to the close to the goal line, he is capable of doing. So I would be out on Mixon this week, especially after the 58-point game. But I feel like the bye has like kind of made people, it gave a little buffer for like ownership with him, right? Like if we were coming right in hot after last week, you 58 points, and people were like, you can't fade Mixon, too much upside.
Would you have said that the week after you said he stinks?
Yeah, no, exactly. I know. I mean, you can thank me for whoever played him that for theirs performance.
I did.
Yeah.
I was trying to defend, much like I was defending San Antonio. I was trying to defend Mixon. I was like, well, he's got an opportunity. Hey, one more quarterback I want to talk about, Lamar, especially on FanDuel's 8-4. He's getting back Mark Andrews, presumably. Lamar was also sick. Andrews, I assume, is a full go if he's going to be out there. I feel like he's like the one tight end that's different than everybody else as far as price. Hawkinson's a little bit expensive as well too, especially on FanDuel. But what are we doing with that, Chop, as far as Lamar? And also they're 14-point favorites. So like, what do they need him to do? Maybe they just run the ball a ton. By the way, reports that Edwards probably doesn't play today. I think Kenyon Drake is kind of interesting. 5'9" on DK. Dude, I'm not happy saying that either. But like, he's like almost 7K on FanDuel, but his DK price at 5'9". No,
reports are that Edwards is supposed to play in a limited role, anymore. Right? Not anymore. They changed it right now.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
He's out.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be Kenyon Drake. I got to take though.
Then Drake, go for it.
It's the same thing with like Devin Singletary. Your analysis for Devin Singletary, right? Like, so he had 2 touchdowns with no Gus Edwards in like the nut spot, like in a great game, 24 rushing attempts. And he got you 24 fantasy points. That's great, right? But you're not going to like, do we count on those touchdowns again? Or like, will Lamar get some, like eat into this game?
Yeah. Like I feel better about Drake than I do about Singletary, to be honest with you. Like,
they love to run the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so he at least, he got his 100-yard bonus in week 6 on only 10 carries. So he's got a little bit of juice left in him. And then week 8 against Tampa, that's a tough team. He caught a touchdown, so he's got a little something out of the receiving game if you need it, and then the 2 touchdown game, so he has multiple touchdown ups. And they do like to run the ball. And maybe Lamar, obviously this is not a guy you want to pair with Lamar. You definitely want to separate those guys because it's either Lamar is going to take it from him and Lamar is going to be a great quarterback fantasy wise, or Lamar is going to defer to him and Drake has a little upside. So. I don't mind Drake. I'm gonna put him in my player pool after that news right there.
Hey, GR Sauce is a question. You're talking about Najee Kirkwood. Would he get game scripted out if somehow they're behind by 2 touchdowns, or would Warren all of a sudden be the guy? Who's the passing down guy amongst those two? I've mostly ignored the Pittsburgh backfield this year with success, and they're only 3-point dogs at home. Like, you can't just assume it's going to blow out, but. Is there a chance, like if they're down, is it clearly Warren, or they're going to split it, or what do we have there? What's the reason?
Well, against Philly, when they were down, he had 6 targets. All right, so that's a good sign. And he's also cheap, so that's another where he wrote that does price negate that? Like he doesn't need to do a ton for 5,500 to work. It also could be a game strip where they run the rock a lot, have success, and they're up, and then the passing script is. The coming from behind with Joe Burrow. So that could work in his favor. Now, if it gets flip-flopped, like it's not ideal to have Najee, but, I think it's encouraging that he did get 6 targets two games ago.
Shiv wants to know in chat, Chop, specifically, give us a couple FanDuel picks. I don't know how you want to answer that. There's a lot of interpretation you can have with that. So players, if you want a game stack. Well, you don't even like the concept necessarily of stacking. You're not married to it, which I like. You leave yourself some flexibility. But who are some of your favorite plays on FanDuel? I made some lines before the show, and I'll give a couple of mine out as well. What do you got?
Well, you give a couple of yours out while I pull up FanDuel pricing real quick.
So I have way too much Devonta Smith. I just like that game a lot. I made multiple combinations of Hurts with either Smith or AJ Brown. AJ Brown's really lost on this slate, and I think he's, we kind of forgot his big play potential in a dome there versus Indy. And I mean, I don't love Matt Ryan, but he's an upgrade over what they were throwing out there before. And the combination of either Pittman, if not Pittman, I'm okay stepping down and playing. I'm forgetting the second guy's name.
Paris Campbell.
Yeah, Paris Campbell, who's more playable, I think, on DK. Paris Hilton, by the way, said on our podcast by I think Rebar Wednesday night. These things happen. You talk on a lot of shows, just sort of you miss a name or two. I like that game a good bit, and I'm playing a little bit of Taylor as well because if Coach there in Indy has his way, he just runs Taylor into the ground for 40 more rushes, and we saw that's what happened. That's what Washington did against Philadelphia, right? They just sort of let's just grind it out on them. So that's one of my favorite games. I'm getting different pieces, different combinations of that. I have too much Isaiah McKenzie on FanDuel because he's really, really cheap. And it's a way to get, a cheap way of getting attached to a really, really good offense. It's a cheap way to pair, Josh Allen. If you want Josh Allen pairing super cheap, play McKenzie with Knox. And, there you go. The run backs are kind of tricky. I do have a little bit of Hunt. I'm not happy about that either, but theoretically they'll be behind and they'll be passing the ball to Hunt. And Montgomery is just hard not to play, man. I hate that. And but he's just one of the best plays on the board. I've heard rumblings. I heard people, talk about the running back situation there in Chicago. And of course, Fields can siphon it. But I hear people talk about Tristan Ebner. I don't think I should be concerned about that terribly. Of course, Montgomery's not going to have 100% of the touches, but I feel like he's getting a good chunk. I think I gave you enough time there, Chop. Give me some of your favorite FanDuel plays.
I don't really distinguish too much between FanDuel and DraftKings as far as the plays, but some of the guys that are a little bit cheaper on FanDuel let me see here. Drake London, that's a really good price on FanDuel. And I know, and his game fits, like he stinks with Mariota at quarterback right now, but what do we need on FanDuel? We need touchdowns. He is a touchdown guy, so I like that price tag. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones on FanDuel with that old under 6K price tag. Brandon Cooks, I'm not in love with Brandon Cooks, but that's a good price tag on FanDuel that I like. Probably maybe one of my favorite receivers on FanDuel is Cortland Sutton. I like him, 7K, and wants touchdowns. I think he's a touchdown guy today. Montgomery, good price tag. You mentioned that. Yeah, the running backs are really tough on FanDuel because there's no real savings right there. Like
they even bumped up Singletary. He's in the mid sixes now.
Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, man. I can't play.
Oh,
did we lose Chopper?
I thought we were losing me.
No, I think
tight end and receiver.
All right, just lost you there for a second, but you're back now. David and Jack talking about how it's windy AF in the Northeast. Fade Garrett Wilson today. I wouldn't say that necessarily. We have Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth saying that we're looking at 15 to 20 mile per hour winds sustained with stronger gusts. It will impact some throws and kicks. Temperatures in the 30s that feel even colder. Yeah, it's not perfect, but he puts he made it yellow. It's not like it's not orange. It's not unplayable necessarily. Yeah, sure, tempered to some degree. Also yellow in Baltimore with some winds. Yellow in for the Giants as well. I'll drop that link in chat for the people. Also, I'm going to drop this in chat too. If you guys want to win yourself 1 month free of RotoGrinders Premium, just accurately answer my tweet. Give me your boldest proclamation and tell me, be correct, be most accurate. You get yourself a month free, not just football, all the sports, everything that we offer. You can get yourself, you can use the lineup HQ and the expert tools, everything at your disposal for a week. I see people in chat, they're looking at the lineup HQ. What is this guy's ownership? Well, you can look at it at your own leisure. Just win this contest. Very, very simple. Respond to that tweet correctly. Kirkwood, give me a couple of your favorite plays. Maybe receiver. Who's your favorite cheap receiver on DK? Who's making everything work for you?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit of a step up. I'm gonna play Drake London.
Yeah.
Today. Then whatever, any of these guys are, you got to take someone. But I don't know. I guess Drake London's my favorite, but he's 5,100. But Donovan Peoples-Jones at 4,600 is the cheapest one I like.
If you don't want to mess with Donovan Peoples-Jones, you don't want to mess with all the Ben Skowronek of the world or a salary cap in general, let's play on Stat Hero. In case you haven't heard, Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform that allows users to compete only against the house, not against other players. You don't have to play against Kirkwood or Chop. You participate in a head-to-head style contest for Stat Hero. They're going to provide a lineup that you have to beat with your own, as well as pick'em style contest. Also, check out the Big Dime League. It's a season-long leaderboard NFL contest with up to $50,000 in prizes. Of course, we would not mention this without giving you a nice, sweet deposit bonus. Use the promo code GRINDERS. That's GRINDERS. 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Jump into the action today over at Stat Hero. We're here for about maybe close to 10 minutes, and we're going to yield to SquirrelPatrol, who's been to like 1 billion live finals, give or take 1 billion, but more than, maybe 50. I don't know what it is exactly. It's a lot. Erik as well. Chop, let's talk about tight end. Well, I want to get Kirkwood to 2.5K tight end first. Which one of these Eagles is the big winner of the absence of Dallas Goedert? Because I don't know. I've heard two of them talked about. Is it this Calcaterra character or is it Stoll?
It's a Jack attack. Jack Stoll. This guy is going. He is going to be the difference maker today. The problem is that they pulled up another guy and they had I don't trust them. He's at least been playing. He is obviously he's a good blocker, but if you dig into him and like read some of the message boards and whatnot for Eagles, which is tough as a Patriots
You're reading
fan.
Eagles message boards?
I gotta dig into these guys when I'm on them. It's tough as a Patriots fan. It is tough. Like I have to bite my lip, go in there and see what they're saying, read the tea leaves, so to speak. But so he's getting, he's on the field. First of all, he's a good blocker, but he's made a lot of strides in his passing game and route running. He was never a big offensive player in college or anything either. But he has gotten targets. That's all I care about. He's looked fine to me when he's on the field. He's supposed to be an improved thing, and the tight end's an important part of that offense. So I'm gonna roll the dice on the guy who's been playing. In week 8, he had 57% of the snaps. He's been anywhere from 20 to 50% of the snaps, and now it's going to be Goddard's gone. Who was playing 100% of the snaps. So it just comes down to the fact that he's 2,500. I don't really love anyone at tight end this week, and it's a way it's a way for me to get the guys that I want. If I had to pick someone, there's 2 guys I would play, but there's probably 3. I like Kyle Pitts, I like Freiermuth, and I like who was the last one? Cole Kmet.
All right, Chop. I was listening to the Blitz show, and I heard Cardi say the first 10 optimals had 7 different tight ends. They all feel like different degrees of meh. Your boy Dalton Schultz on the Cowboys is projected to be one of the more popular ones. But, of course, you can play Dawson Knox as a cheapie. Hawkinson, if you have the salary for it. If you think this is the week for Pitts, is finally his targets, finally his air yards turning the actual catches. Of course, Mariota's throwing the football, so grain of salt. You could spend up on Andrews if you want to. Freiermuth is one of the guys I like there. Higbee, theoretically, he's going to get some, a little bit more with Kupp being out, but that offense feels like it's officially just dead and just can't move. 38 total in the dome there in New Orleans, whatever it is. It's really, really putrid. Njoku expected to play today. Fossa Moreau probably, he's been fine for the Raiders. There's so many guys, and for me, I don't have a clear separator. I don't love the fact that Schultz is going to be one of the more popular ones, but attached to a good game, obviously. Is there anybody that's really clearing the way for you, or I don't know how to pick tight ends today, genuinely?
No, there's no clear-cut guy. I mean, the clear-cut guy would be Mark Andrews, but you're not. It's very difficult. He's a great tournament player, Mark Andrews, because of the price tag, but other than that, there's nobody that really jumps out. All the names you mentioned, by the way, we got some rough weather outside, so my internet is spotty. So if I do cut out, it's because the internet's spotty. But so the cheap ones, I get the Philly love. That's fine. I would say I don't know who's going to play the snaps between those two guys. I mean, probably the Stoll's going to play more because they're more of a run heavy team, and he'll get in there more. Calcaterra was the better pass catcher in college for sure. So, but I don't know if that translates to the NFL or not. So, I don't know if I want to go that route. The cheapest guy I see on DraftKings at least, Jawan Johnson is the cheapest guy I would play at 3,100. But then for 100 more, I can get Dawson Knox, who is in a good system and is in a dome and all that other stuff. Foster Moreau, you mentioned. I don't think you mentioned Greg Dulcich.
He's right there. Yeah.
I like him. I like him more than Moreau, maybe more than Njoku, more than Hayden Hurst and Tyler Conklin. I like Dulcich quite a bit. Russell really likes to target those tight ends, and rookie tight ends usually aren't very good, but Dulcich, this could be the exception because of his usage. So, and then you said Higbee. I think he does get a bump up. So I like some Higbee, and Dalton Schultz is anytime Dak is under center, Dalton Schultz is definitely in play. So yeah, those are the guys. There's no separator. I think they're all solid, but just build your lineup and see where it takes you. See how much you have left over at tight end, and that's the guy you want to play. Max it out.
Robert, let me just answer this question for Robert in chat. Yeah. Trying to make he's trying to figure out lineup HQ, and he wants to get just one tight end. And I think the way you do that is you go to build settings, go to flex exposure, and you put like running back and receiver like over 50%.
No, he wanted 0 tight ends.
Well, no, I think he wants 1. You can't play 0. That's not going to work. You can't make a lineup of 0 tight ends. Well, not even lineup HQ can make that work for you. But what were you going to say, Kirkwood?
This is probably not going to work, but he's 2,800. Logan Thomas, this is the first week he hasn't been on the injury report with his ribs injury. Okay. This is a guy who has demanded targets in the past, has some history with Heineke. Might not work, but it's a cheap flyer.
I don't think we talked about Barkley. Like Barkley's is a really, really good play. It's just a matter of like how much you're willing to go out of your way for Saquon. Are you going to be over or under Kirkwood on Barkley? He's obviously a great play. If you don't know us at this point, where have you been? But is he worth the hit it is on your rest of your lineup as far as salary, obviously?
I mean, it's tough. You gotta do some things, but I'm playing him on Yahoo. It's the nut matchup for him against Detroit. You get the fact that it's windy there too. This is a game that just makes a lot of sense. When the Giants win, Saquon does a lot better. That's been if you plot his chart. Yeah, I mean, 8,900 is tough on DraftKings this week, but I do have a build with him. But you got to get crazy with some of these wide receivers in order to do that. If you're playing, actually, the build I have is fading Diggs, and it's with Davis at wide receiver, and then I could fit Saquon. So I do have a build with that, but it's tough.
Chop, which Washington running backs do I want? Do I want Robinson or Gibson, or do I want neither?
The only guy that'll be in a lineup for me would be Gibson today, and that's a tough one. But I say Gibson. I mean, it's a good matchup for Robinson theoretically. He just doesn't look as good when he's out there. Gibson's looking a lot better right now, so I got more Gibson.
My favorite play in that game is McLaurin, especially on DK. I'm going to have way too much of him. Love him in the dome here. But one of the secondaries, the best guy in the secondary for Houston is apparently out as well, too. McLaurin, obviously, him and Heineke certainly have a kinship of some sort. His targets have shot up when Taylor was inserted. We got to step aside and get out of here, Kirkwood, but give me your favorite stack, your favorite, just what something we may have not touched on you want to stress. Like we didn't spend a lot of time talking about how great Diggs is, how great Jefferson is, how great Lamb is. Like those are obviously good plays. But what is something you want to bring home before you step aside and make way for?
I just want to add to the Robinson talk here. He's 5,300. He just got 26 carries against a tough rushing defense in Philly. They were missing one of their run stuffers, and they are clearly just feeding him, and this is the best possible matchup. And really, you need this guy to get in the end zone, and it's very possible in Houston, who gives up the most rushing touchdowns in the league, I believe. So I think Robinson is in play if that game goes right. But Scary Terry is like my favorite wide receiver play of the week. So
me and you both.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't listening. You just said that.
Yeah, just talked about how much I like Terry. Yeah.
Okay. Rest in peace.
Oh man.
My favorite stack.
Yeah. How do you feel about John Stamos?
Yeah, my favorite stack is definitely, this week reminds me of the week that I smashed with the chalk with Miami Dolphins, and I was just very confident in my lineup. It's a little bit less than that. I don't have that warm and fuzzy feeling with the cheap running backs and with Miami knowing that's going. But I feel like Josh Allen is just going to absolutely nuke in this game. Like I feel like it's an angry Josh Allen coming after a bad game that they blew.
He was angry.
And there's just not a lot of competition, I mean, there is, but it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of competition. So I'm going to be all in there. If I really wanted to get crazy, as bad as it is, this is a gross play that I have. This is like one of those vomit stacks.
Finish strong.
It would be Taylor Heineke with Scary Terry.
Yeah, and football players are players of routine, so like who really knows how it's going to affect them? But it's got to affect them in some way. Getting stuck on the tarmac for hours, or I don't know. They had no idea when they were leaving Buffalo to get to Detroit if the game was going to get officially played, if the game was going to get moved. It was a weird week for Buffalo, but theoretically, in a dome against Cleveland, they should be awesome. Chop, final word.
Good luck.
I thought you were going to give me a play or two. Chop, I do appreciate it. It was fun to have you on. Thank you for stepping in. We're going to make way for Erik and Squirrel in just a second. Do appreciate y'all hanging out and watching. Hit that like button as you wait for Erik and Squirrel to jump in. No reason to leave the stream. They'll be coming on in just a second. That was Headchopper. That was Kirkwood. I was Dean. That was producer Steve. Again, Squirrel, Erik coming in right now. Appreciate y'all watching.
What is up, everyone? Turn Ferguson, aka Genie for 07 over at Twitter, being another edition of Going Long, where I'm giving my favorite NFL bets each and every Monday, Thursday, Friday. Got 3 new days, so let's get right into it. Starting off with Matthew Stafford under 232.5 passing yards. You can just minus 110 over at MGM. Stafford has been off for the last 2 weeks, sub 200 yards. In his spot with a sub 40 total. No Cooper Kupp. This is an easy under. Hammer it. Next up, TJ Hawkinson over 44.5 receiving yards, minus 120 over at DK. Hawkinson has been absolutely fantastic so far with the Vikings. 9 and 10 targets so far in the first 2 games, playing in a dome in what should be a high-scoring close game here. This is an easy over. Last up, Dak Prescott under 12.5 rushing yards, minus 105 over at DK. Dak has only hit this once out of 4 games, and he had a 24-yard run in that game. So realistically, take that away. 0-4 on this bet. Not running the ball a ton, sitting right around 3 attempts per game. This is an easy under. Good luck tonight, guys. I'm out here. Play it.
What is going on, guys? Look at us early. We're early for once. Not that's no shade to the guys in front of us. They're always on time. I'm always running overtime, probably because I like to talk to guests like I have here today. I am your host, Erik Beimfohr. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Beimfohr, and I welcome back John Breslin, aka SquirrelPatrol. You probably see him constantly on the top of the leaderboards in all of your different DFS contests. Hopefully today the rest of us can win. John can win, but the rest of us can maybe take down some of these tournaments. But John, how are you feeling? Week 11, dude. The season is kind of flying by here.
Yeah, I've been anxious to get on the show because last time we nailed it. Like last time we did this show, we were talking up the Raiders offense and Devontae Adams, and everybody was making fun of us in chat. And then and then Adams went out and had a great game. And, you ask one stack to win it all. And I said Justin Fields and Tyreek Hill. And that was the Justin Fields, Tyreek Hill week, right? And I took down the rush on FanDuel, the $9 qualifier for the live final seed. I think I was 5th or 6th in the Millie Maker. So we nailed it last time. So hopefully you can do that again, win people some money. Hopefully people aren't making fun of us in the chat this time. But it's a great week. It's I think the biggest thing this week has been the Buffalo travel situation, the snow and travel situation. I think content wise, it would have been a much different week, leading up to this, if we just knew that the Bills are in Detroit getting ready to play Cleveland. I think it would have been just a discussion of Josh Allen chalk all week.
Right.
We haven't had that discussion, and I think Josh Allen's going to be very highly owned in tournaments because people are going to think he's sneaky, and he's projecting far and away the best quarterback on the week.
100%. So maybe that's what this show will be here for. Where the whole week everybody's is this game even going to play? Is it going to be in 6 feet of snow? Can the Bills even get out of Buffalo? And now obviously we're an hour and a half away from the game, and everything it's wheels up, right? And so now is the time when we do kind of have to reassess that. And I agree with you that probably the highest owned quarterback on both sites. DraftKings we'll talk a little bit about because it is a little bit tricky. Just with, the dynamics of not a ton of value, but also not Cooper Kupp's not a thing anymore. Travis Kelce's not on the slate. The running back position is kind of garbage. So it's a very interesting dynamic with Josh Allen. I want to start with that game because, like you said, I think the majority of the week we've probably been I don't know what to do with that game. So let's think about the other games. And like you said, the content has been that way too. And my brain has been I probably thought more about the Falcons and Bears game, which makes me sick to my stomach to even say out loud, but thought more about the Falcons and Bears game than I thought about the Bills Browns game. Now I think that should probably flip. The interesting thing to me that I want to get your thoughts on with the Bills is, I like everyone on the Bills. that I think that, even all the way down to the Dawson Knoxes of the world make for good tournament plays. I obviously love, just like everyone else does, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. If anyone knows me, they know that I'm a Gabe Davis stan, but I do really like him today, actually, no bias. But on the Browns side, you have this weird dynamic of anybody that faces the Bills, right? So you always go in and you're like, Bills game, time to stack it up. But the flip side of that is they have the best defense in the NFL. You're not getting a good matchup for anybody on the other side. And then when you get a Jacoby Brissett-led offense who wants to run the ball, so you're okay, well, then maybe Nick Chubb. Well, he's 8,200 on DraftKings. You want to play your Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs team with Nick Chubb? Good luck, making that work with a good team. I'm not saying you can't, but it's a very weird dynamic with the Bills where we love them. We know they're going to score a bunch of points, which makes us theoretically like the other side. But I don't know. Amari Cooper doesn't look that good to me. DPJ has been getting a bunch of targets, but this is not really a matchup for him to totally flourish. And Njoku looks like he's back, right? It's tricky. So how are you going through the Browns side of this game?
It is. That's difficult because you're not going to get any Browns guys with your optimizer when you're running in. You'll run an optimizer. You'll get a bunch of Josh Allen, some Stephon Diggs. You're not going to get a lot of Browns. So you kind of have to force them in, and then that's a decision point. That's a path to failure for Josh Allen and the Bills offense. Is what if they go up 21-0, 28-0? But I do. This Browns offense is competent. Nick Chubb is one of the best runners in the league, and you can just force it in. I wrote on the expert survey. My correlation I think was Josh Allen and Nick Chubb because I think they'll bring out each other's ceilings. But Nick Chubb has a much clearer path to failure than Josh Allen. So that's a risky move. I wouldn't necessarily I think that's a great 150 or trying to take down the Millie Maker type of move. I don't know. And if you are playing Josh Allen, I think he's going to be highly owned. I think you do want to pair him with some lower owned guys, and so I think Nick Chubb makes sense. I think Amari Cooper makes sense. But then you are sacrificing you're playing some uncomfortable value. But I think that's okay. I think that's the kind of thing you have to do.
The guy that this happens every week where, we just kind of talk through the most, if you have not watched the show, we kind of talk through the most notable, it's a GPP Final Takes show, kind of what do you need to be thinking about for tournaments, right? Sometimes it's the roster construction, right? Back in the old days of team jam them in, you're do I just play David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell like everybody? Do I play Travis Kelce? Or are there certain games we need to focus on, et cetera? Tony Pollard without Ezekiel Elliott, those kinds of things. This week, I think that this game is probably the starting point for the slate, and it's because of everything that we talked about. The guy that, most shows are probably not going to get into in the first 10 minutes, but I'm kind of watching to wait and see if he is for sure active, but it's David Njoku on the Brown side. So when I walk through everything that you said, and let's just say we run 150 max on both sides and an optimizer, like you said, you might get 0 Bills or Browns. But theoretically, I don't want to give up tons of projection and upside with Amari Cooper, right? I don't want to pay $6,400 for Amari Cooper on DraftKings when, Gabe on the other side is the same price, right? We're going to get to tons of other guys: Diggs, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, the Bengals guys, the Steelers guys, some punt guys. There's all those plays, and Nick Chubb, who I do like. I agree. Nick Chubb could run for 200 yards today, and the Bills would probably be happy with that. But again, he's 8,200. The position and the price of David Njoku allow me to put him in and really not give up anything in my lineup as my bring back, right? The Bills don't have a tight end that I'm loving to play. Dawson Knox is fine, but the tight end position itself is just like a barren wasteland. Other than Mark Andrews, who, we like some of these other guys, but I can use Njoku as my bring back and be like, what am I really giving up? There's uncertainty because I assume he's healthy. He's questionable. Again, I'm kind of waiting to see if anybody in the chat sees it that he is officially active. Maybe he doesn't play. Then I'm like, well, now let's look at Harrison Bryant, right? Because these guys are going to be unowned, and they're also going to get the elevated, potential usage if the Bills do kind of do their thing on that side. So shout out to you, Nathaniel. Thank you. Njoku is active. So I really like Njoku. He was like a stud fantasy tight end before he went down. And so I kind of want to go back there before everybody else does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Njoku is like the first of the Browns that I get, if you just keep running optimal lineups.
How many do you have to run to get to Njoku? Okay, let's and anything on the Bills though that we didn't discuss that is kind of sticking out to you. Is it just wash, rinse, repeat with Josh Allen and Diggs, Gabe Davis, or how are you kind of handling the Bills side?
Yeah, I think it's I sometimes you run these optimals and you get, I think this guy is going to be overowned if the situation, kind of bad chalk. I don't think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are bad chalk at this
no
at this stage. I won't I'll have Allen and Diggs in a lot of lineups because I think that's and then you want to mix it up a little bit, so you'll play some some Gabe Davis. I think Isaiah McKenzie he was questionable earlier in the week, but I think he's in, so McKenzie's an option. I think if you're not going to play Josh Allen at quarterback, then I think you can play maybe Devin Singletary with with Marcus Mariota or whoever you're playing at quarterback that's not Josh Allen, saying that's a path to failure for Josh Allen, is that Devin Singletary gets 2 touchdowns, Bills defense maybe gets a touchdown, and that's the game ends 21-10 or something like that, 21-14. That's definitely within the range of plausible outcomes. So I do like Devin Singletary as a pivot, if you're not playing Josh Allen as at your quarterback.
Yeah, and running back is really weak this week too. I'm going to struggle to come up with some name. They will definitely bring up plenty, but this isn't honestly like we've had for maybe the last month, maybe even 2 months, where it was I don't know, dude. There's running backs I can't even get to if I'm playing a bunch of teams that I think are legitimately good. They project well, they're in a good matchup or whatever. This week, I don't feel quite that way. 2 guys who I do want to get into, who I think one has just recently become a decision point. One has been a decision point all week. The first, going back to that Bears-Falcons game, is David Montgomery. I want to talk about him and kind of this game as a whole, because, we just, again, don't have a lot of great running back plays. We don't have a lot of, smash running backs in good matchups. And he is, frankly, one on a all of a sudden rejuvenated Bears offense that's lighting everybody up. I know it's a lot of Justin Fields, but Khalil Herbert was stealing, 30 to 40% of the rush work, not necessarily the snaps, but the rush work. They don't really have another guy that can kind of replicate that. They have rookie Tristan Ebner, who's more of kind of a passing down and weapon type guy. And then they called up Darrington Evans from the practice squad. Shout out Darrington from last year, Best Ball Streets, and all the money I lost on you. So you'll probably score 2 touchdowns today, when I play David Montgomery. But what are you doing, and how are you thinking about David Montgomery for tournaments? Because again, similar to Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, he's going to be really popular. But I am struggling a little bit to find some. I would love to, because I'm not a David Montgomery guy, but find some, pivots that just look really strong around him. One which the chat's getting to, and we'll get to it, I assure you guys.
Yeah, so I do like Montgomery this week. I think Montgomery's a much better play on FanDuel. I think he's going to be the chalk on FanDuel, and I struggle to find anybody cheaper than him at his price. He's 6,200 on FanDuel. The next best options are probably like Melvin Gordon, like Latavius Murray, Kareem Hunt, and those are fine. Like those are more like 150 options for me. Like I like Montgomery significantly better than all those guys. On DraftKings, it's a little bit more questionable because like Montgomery hasn't been like a huge pass catcher in his career, especially with Justin Fields there. So I think Montgomery's like less chalky on DraftKings, and there's a couple of guys, like actually a handful of guys that are cheaper that are like very plausible pivots, like Kenyon Drake. So the first one that jumps out, it looks like Gus Edwards is like severely limited, or I think he might officially be out now.
Officially out now. Yep.
Officially out. Yeah. So that's a big deal. I don't think he's going to be chalk like Kenyon Drake, because Lamar Jackson is still there. I mean, Lamar Jackson is the running back one. It has been for years. So that's what Jared asked. What do you think? Similar to your kind of assessment about Josh Allen, the whole week, people are like, oh my God, we're going to get low owned Josh Allen. Kenyon Drake is definitely going to get a big projection boost. How much ownership boost do you think that he gets this week? I don't think he'll get that much of an ownership. I'll be surprised if he's chalk. It's just because there's definitely reasonable pivots in that. He's 5,900 on DraftKings. So you've got Devin Singletary that's cheaper. You've got like Antonio Gibson that's cheaper.
Yeah, the Washington guys. Yep.
Yeah, the Washington guys. Dante Foreman cheaper. Like not necessarily like a play that I'm in love with, but I think that'll keep Kenyon Drake's ownership down on DraftKings. On FanDuel, and he sees 6,800. Yeah, again, you've got the same situation. So you've got like Devin Singletary is cheaper, Antonio Gibson's cheaper. Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, like Cordell Patterson. So I don't think Kenyon Drake's going to be chalk, but I think he's a good option. But he's not going to be chalk.
Yeah, he's another big decision point for me where I feel confident that David Montgomery is going to get his ownership. So that's something I have to figure out within the constructs of each lineup. Kenyon Drake, if that's true, he becomes like play of the day to me almost. He is in one of the best rushing offenses, if not the best rushing offense in the NFL, with Lamar Jackson back there. Again, like you said, Lamar is RB1 on the team, but these running backs have always been good. Now, no Dobbins, no Edwards, fresh off of this situation where he got like 26 touches or something like that for like 100 total yards in the last game against a Panthers team that is just getting destroyed for a while now, particularly on the ground. They're just really not a very physical defense, and this is the type of matchup where when the Ravens, they do have Mark Andrews back, but I mean, their number one wide receiver is Devin Duvernay. I think if they come into this game against a team that probably can't put up a bunch of points against them and they say, how are we going to win? It's probably Lamar and Kenyon Drake, a dash of Justice Hill or whatever on the ground. And so I do really, really like Kenyon Drake. I'm kind of happy that he opened up because I've been struggling at the running back position. Another keep the questions and comments and everything coming in chat, and we're going to keep trying to hit those. Another situation, you mentioned these guys' names that I'm interested in and also want to get your take on kind of between the two is in Washington. So we get a two-headed monster. JD McKissick is on IR. Hopefully he's okay. It sounds like he's kind of got like a Chris Carson-esque neck issue, which is never good. Obviously Chris Carson ended his career. And so that opens up basically just two dudes in one of the best matchups in the NFL for running backs against the Houston Texans. Antonio Gibson's going to get some more of the pass work, but Brian Robinson's going to get a little bit more of the early down, maybe goal line work, although Gibson got some goal line work last week. I like both of these guys. How are you kind of deciding between two? Are you favoring them? How are you handling these two guys? Because I do think they're kind of high up on the pecking order of particularly tournament play running backs because there's two of them, so neither of them can really get like crazy ownership.
Right. So I like Antonio Gibson better. He's a little bit more expensive. He's 300 more on DraftKings, but I think the passing game work is important. And especially like you see that thing where there's a change in quarterback and suddenly running back starts getting a little bit more receptions, a little bit more targets. I think that's a big deal. But like with Taylor Heineke, because that's kind of thing that tends to continue. So I do like Antonio Gibson, but he's a little bit more expensive than Brian Robinson. So if you don't have the money, I think Brian Robinson's a good play as well. But I have my preferred options in Antonio Gibson just because of the passing game work. Actually, they're the same price on FanDuel, but I still probably prefer Antonio Gibson. I think he's a little bit safer just because of the built-in targets.
And probably a little more. I don't want to say that because, again, then Brian Robinson's going to run for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and they're going to win by 20 or whatever. But just having the passing down role not only makes you safer, but theoretically gives you more upside. Like, yes, Robinson's going to project for more carries, but like, I don't know, coaches are crazy, man. Like this whole hot hand stuff, that we hear every single week, right? Like it's fluid. And the game script could, like, we're all expecting them to come out and pound the rock and win against the Texans, but crazy stuff happens every week in the NFL. The Texans beat the Chargers last year in a game where we thought, it was going to be a blowout for the Chargers. The Vikings beat the Bills last week. This stuff happens. Who knows? A defensive score or whatever, and they fall behind, and you're getting Antonio Gibson on the field like the whole time, catching passes. He's explosive, so he's the one of the two guys that could rip a big play. Right? If one of these guys is going to score a 60-yard touchdown, sorry, Brian Robinson, it's not you. That dude is, that dude's a bull. He's a bully between the tackles, but doesn't have a ton of juice. So I kind of agree in tournaments. There's just a lot of paths for Gibson to get there. I mean, he got there. They beat the Eagles last week, and he got there and scored a goal line touchdown. Who's to say he doesn't, just get more work than Brian Robinson? But that's just kind of not what we're projecting. So he's not getting the requisite ownership.
Yeah, I also think like maybe Taylor Heineke's getting a little bit hyped up at this point. It's weird because he's one of those, like, I like Heineke. I live in the DC area, so I follow the Washington football team or the Commodores or whatever they are now. But Heineke's a guy, like, when he comes in and everybody ignores him for DFS, like, he can run a little bit. He's going to be like close to minimum price. I think he's a decent backup quarterback. He's worth keeping an eye on if you're looking for a value quarterback. And then he always starts doing well, and everyone's like, wow, like Washington's a 3-point favorite in Houston. And Houston's no world beaters, but I don't know. Like Heineke takes some risks. Like that's how he wins games. Mm-hmm. He can turn the ball over. So it would not shock me if Washington's playing from behind in this game, and maybe they do. Maybe they win in the fourth quarter or something. Like Antonio Gibson could be catching some passes as Washington tries to catch up, despite the fact that the line is favoring Washington.
So let's talk about this game kind of through that lens. We talked about the Washington running backs, but the two highest owned projected players in this game are actually the Houston running back, Dameon Pierce, because he just always projects well. Eno Benjamin, for anybody following, is inactive today, so it's kind of status quo for Houston. Rex Burkhead will back up Dameon Pierce. He just always projects well at this 6K range or whatever. He kind of never tends to be quite his own. He's owned, but the field's gotten very smart. He's a Houston Texans running back and doesn't catch a ton of passes, so he never really blows through the roof with ownership, but he's going to be owned. And Terry McLaurin actually is the highest projected owned player on the Washington side for good reason. With Taylor Heineke in there, I mean, he's got freaking Bitcoin eyes, laser eyes on Terry McLaurin. He's feeding him the rock. It's a great matchup, and he's sub 6K on DraftKings. How are you kind of approaching this game though? Because the ownership is following. We kind of outlined how does Antonio Gibson get there, but the ownership is kind of following that game script, right? Dameon Pierce is going to get a bunch of carries. Terry McLaurin's going to be, getting pumped with targets. So does that make Brian Robinson kind of more of the leverage play? You know what I mean? How are you thinking through this game through that lens of Dameon Pierce, McLaurin, and the ownership?
So I don't think we need to go nuts with this game. It doesn't have a high total, but I actually, Dameon Pierce and Terry McLaurin, I probably like more than either of the Washington running backs, just because they're very well priced. And it's interesting. I talked about this in my the Friday show I do with James the Win, where Dameon Pierce has been popping his chalk all week now for 2 weeks in a row because there's a lot of certainty there. And I was saying how this week there's not a lot of certainty because they signed Benjamin, and other guys will kind of creep up throughout the week as injury reports come in. But now I actually like Dameon Pierce a lot more because Benjamin is out now, so that really solidifies the work for Pierce. And now we've got like Kenyon Drake coming on, and he's going to take some ownership, and like so maybe like Dameon Pierce isn't going to be as high owned as we think. And that's like now he's a good play, like 6,500 on DraftKings, like well priced on FanDuel. Take a look at the exact price. Yeah, 7,600 on FanDuel. I like the idea of either pairing Dameon Pierce with the Texans defense, going into that Taylor Heineke like tendency towards risks and turnovers.
YOLO ball.
Pair Pierce with McLaurin, right? And say maybe the game does go over, but I don't think you need to go crazy like with some kind of like Davis Mills, like Pierce, McLaurin stack, right? Oh yeah, or even like Heineke. Okay, I think if you want to play like a Heineke, Pierce, McLaurin stack, or a stack, with the running backs or the Washington running backs and McLaurin, like I think that's a good Millie Maker team. I don't think it's a good like single entry team or like a smaller field team.
100%. I think a like Heineke, McLaurin with a Nico Collins on the other side or something is a reasonable Millie Maker stack. Same, you can jam a lot of good plays in around that. You can get your Diggs, you could get your like Diggs Chubb kind of correlation through that lens. So I do think I think that roster construction is interesting to me today, and that's one example. Again, I'm not playing that just to be totally honest with everybody, but I think that it's very viable in large field tournaments. Another thing that has kind of happened this week that we should talk about is Jared's question. Do you have any read on these Eagles tight ends for anybody that's been living under a rock? Dallas Goedert is hurt. If you have season long or best ball teams, he is supposed to be back this year in the regular season. So he's not dead yet, but he's going to be out. He's on IR. He's going to be out for a while. They have two min-priced tight ends. I think they're both min-priced in Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. My read, and I want to see if this is kind of how you're viewing it as well. I'm not sure I want to play either of them, but if I was going to play one of them, I think people are generally going to make the assumption that Jack Stoll, because he had been playing, will just kind of take on more of the work since he was already playing. My view is kind of that Jack Stoll is Jack Stoll. He's not like the next guy, it's not like Madden, you know what I mean? Where like, okay, Goddard gets hurt, the next guy on your depth chart at tight end moves up and plays all the snaps. And sometimes that happens, but that's not what's going to happen here. I think Calcaterra is going to kind of get the receiving work, and Stoll's really there to block. And so I think his role remains largely unchanged. He's still going to be out there, and maybe that gets him a few more targets without Goddard. But I think for me, it's probably Calcaterra if I'm going that direction. What say you?
Yeah, my answer is Devontae Smith. I think that's the guy.
Great answer.
I think there's cheaper tight ends in that range, right? In that salary range, there's other tight ends on other teams that I like that I think are like more solid work. And I think Devontae Smith is going to be the beneficiary there, particularly on FanDuel. I think he's really cheap. So I don't have a read. My read is basically the same thing that you said, whereas I think Jack Stoll is the blocking tight end. Like he's been there all year and hasn't like gone crazy catching passes. He's not going to turn into like this huge receiver. I mean, either one of these guys can get a touchdown, but I don't think they're going to be like peppered with targets. Where just because Dallas Goedert's out, like I think. They're just not. That's not who these guys are as players. And there's like if you're searching for a cheap tight end, like I'd go with like Dawson Knox is going to be, the guy that I would prefer like 3,200 on DraftKings. So yeah, Devontae.
I agree. It's interesting. I like the segue into the Eagles stack because I think most will just opt for the Bills, right? Feels easier, feels more comfortable, a little bit better matchup maybe. And it's just like Jalen Hurts hasn't done the Josh Allen thing this year. We've kind of been waiting for it all year. Like, we just need the Eagles to get pushed, right? I probably said that like 75% of weeks. I'm like, I really like the Eagles, but their defense is really good. We need the other team to push back a little bit. I'm still not certain that the Colts are that team that's going to push back. Actually think they probably try to establish it, kind of like Washington did last week. But we got Washington. Washington scored 32 points on the, granted one defensive touchdown, but they scored 32 points last week on the Eagles, and we still didn't get We still didn't get the Jalen Hurts big game. That doesn't mean I don't think that it's there. And I do like the fact that, I mean, it's just got to be A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith now, right? Like, there's just no way to me that those tight ends or Quez Watkins are coming in and demanding a bunch of work. And so that feels really good to me. The ability to play A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, or just one, like you said, I think you can single stack Hurts, and maybe we get the old school Hurts, right? Remember, it was last year we'd be playing Hurts, and he was like Marcus Mariota, throwing 15 times but scoring, a good Marcus Mariota, because he's taking all the rushing touchdowns. Like, who's to say that doesn't happen? He throws 2 to Devonta Smith and he runs in for 2. And like, there are some reasonable bringbacks on the Colts side, but nobody's playing the Eagles, dude. Like, everybody keeps asking about the Eagles tight ends, and like, they're going to combine for like 4 targets, but nobody's playing Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. I kind of like that stack, and it makes for an interesting pivot off of the Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's my second favorite quarterback is probably Jalen Hurts, just because he's a guy that he can score in such a variety of ways. The team's got a good implied point total. I believe they're in a dome in Indy. So same situation as Josh Allen, just a little bit cheaper. They're projected for a little bit fewer points. Like, Josh Allen's going to get the outsized ownership. I like Josh Allen more, but I think if I'm playing like a 3 max, maybe I'm going to have like a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, and then one other quarterback as like my 3 teams. Because I think Jalen Hurts is probably the next best quarterback after Josh Allen that can break this slate.
I totally agree. And I think he reminds me, you mentioned our last show that we did together. For anybody that, maybe doesn't watch every single week or didn't watch that week or whatever, A, what have you been doing? But B, we were talking, that John was mentioning, about the Raiders that week. I think that they just came off the game where they got skunked by the Saints, who also suck, by the way. They had been awful, right? And we came in, and it was a great spot for their offense, and we said, I think that this Raiders game is the game. We're like, Devontae Adams is like the best spend, not necessarily the best, but we were like, from a tournament play perspective, really, it was Jags Raiders, right?
Yeah.
Really, really liked that game. They had ETN on the other side, right? Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. We went in on that game. John printed a bunch of money from it. Devontae Adams, now he didn't continue it in the second half because the Raiders are still an abomination, but he scored like 35 fantasy points in the first half. So he didn't even like really need the second half. But the whole reason I bring this up is because everybody was like, we've seen enough of the Raiders. That's it. We're done. They stink. That's what everybody kept telling us. You guys are idiots. The Raiders suck. And like, there's people coming out of the woodwork like, I'm a Raiders fan. You don't understand. They suck. I'm like, I know they suck, but everybody thinks that they suck. Devontae Adams didn't just forget how to play football. That's kind of how I feel about the Eagles right now. Jalen Hurts hasn't popped off, right? Devonta Smith hasn't popped off. A.J. Brown did it a month ago or a few weeks ago or something like that, but they just haven't like broken a slate. And Josh Allen does it every other week, right? Or Diggs does it every other week, or Gabe Davis does it 3 times a year. And so Nick Chubb does it, right? And so people are just like, it's always going to be this way with the Eagles. We're going to get our decent game. They're never going to win me a tournament, certainly not at these prices. And it's like, I don't believe that to be true. I really think we're going to get one of these games where the other team pushes back and Hurts has like 6 touchdowns, right? And now without Goddard, there's nowhere for it to go. So like, this is the dream, right? This is the like Seahawks days of Russ, where it was like, the good thing about them is even if they don't score 1 million, they only got 2 guys that they throw it to. And now you got a rushing quarterback with Hurts. So I've been thinking about them a lot this morning because I love the Bills. And the Bills are currently in like my single entry team, but I've been thinking about pivoting to the Eagles. One last thing on the Eagles is, are you opting for more so like a Hurts to Devonta Smith stack? Are you doubling that? And then what about the Colts side of like any bringbacks? Because they're also a little tricky, similar to the Browns.
Yeah, so I probably like Devonta Smith as like the pairing more than AJ Brown, but I'm going to be forcing in some AJ Brown in like my 150 lineup build because like AJ Brown tends not to like pop in optimal lineups, and even if you set a rule like pair with one like Eagles pass catcher, you're going to get Devonta Smith because his price is priced for like Dallas Goedert being there, and now he's probably going to see more work. But like AJ Brown can get 3 touchdowns. We've seen it. So I think you compare them with either I mean, obviously, like AJ Brown's not going to give you a ton of salary left over to play with, but so you're hoping for that like multiple touchdown game. We know it can happen, and it's going to happen probably at lower ownership. I love bringing it back with Colts as well. Like Jonathan Taylor, we just saw him go nuts. Like he might finally be healthy. Like he has 2 games over 25, DraftKings points this season, and he finally looked healthy last week. And maybe the Jeff Saturday coaching change. Like I mean, this is the guy we were saying is like the best player in fantasy football coming into the season, right? Like
for 6 months. Yeah, we did it. We talked about it for 6 months.
Yeah. So now if he's finally healthy, he's not as expensive as he was. He's not going to get the ownership that he was getting. Like this is great. This is a great like pairing that people are going to be not playing as much as they should. It's interesting because there's maybe not the great value this week. So it sounds crazy, right? We're saying like, well, yeah, play Jalen Hurts and play him with Jonathan Taylor, and you go, well, who am I going to like? What value am I going to use? But like, I actually prefer doing that kind of like just like locking in expensive players and just taking the like what looks like bad value because all the value is bad, right? So it doesn't matter. Like everybody's got to play some kind of bad value. Like I'll just play like lock in the players I want to lock in and just see what it gets me.
Yeah, 100%. 2 things will happen. One, people will play all the same bad value, right? So it all looks crappy. We're talking about Nico Collins and Paris Campbell and a timeshare Washington running back, right? And Jack Stoll. Like we're talking about some bad football players here. But you need like every lineup needs value. So people will either just say, yeah, I'm just going to play Nico, right? I'm just going to Paris Campbell, 15%. What are we doing? What are we against an elite defense? And again, I'm not even, shitting on Paris Campbell. I'm just saying he's the one that you're like, oh, yep. We can tell that story. Matt Ryan's back. He's getting all these targets when Matt Ryan's in there, right? He's a pretty explosive football player, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, these guys are all the same kind of crappy value. So you can play crappy value that no one else is playing, right? I'm like, why do I need to eat the chalky value and then I can play the pivot value? Or everyone else will go to that kind of condensed, right? You'll see like, maybe Paris Campbell isn't as owned because nobody wants to click a lineup, with Paris Campbell and Nico Collins and Jack Stoll in it, right? Nobody's like, oh yeah, I'm winning the millie with this one today, with that team. So you'll be like, okay, just let me go get whatever, the 5K guy, let me go get the guy that feels a little bit better. And then you see the studs that you were talking about. Well, now nobody plays JT. Now nobody plays Justin Jefferson. Now nobody plays those guys, right? CeeDee Lamb, because they don't feel comfortable clicking on that bad value. So it's kind of an and or an either or. But I just think that there's so much value in being like, I'm going to plug my nose and I'm playing Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith with Jonathan Taylor and see, like you said, see what happens. I know I'm going to play a cheap tight end, play whatever cheap-ish running back, right? Play your Kenyon Drake or your David Montgomery. And kind of see what happens with that lineup. Maybe you start to correlate it a little bit. I really feel strongly about that today, kind of playing some fun, a little more off the radar value with these superstars, like you said.
Yeah, I'll say just if you're going to play someone that maybe is some fragile value that's going to be chalky, like Paris Campbell, you want to pair him with a high upside, expensive quarterback that might go a little bit lower owned, like say Jalen Hurts.
100%. Right. Don't play Paris Campbell as a one-off in your Bills stacks. Yeah. Like that's what other people will do to get Josh Allen. It's like, well, how do you play a chalky Paris Campbell and it makes sense? Well, when Jalen Hurts throws 3 touchdowns to Devonta Smith in the first half, that makes Paris Campbell like that's when Paris Campbell hits. So yeah, I totally agree. Let me hit some of these questions here really quickly. Noel says, would you guys play likely? Mark Andrews is in, so no, I'm not playing likely. I understand the kind of the thesis behind it. Without any wide receivers, but I just think it's a little thin and there are quite a few other tight ends. Any likely for you?
Probably not. I mean, I think the thinking there would be like Mark Andrews is playing, but he's actually hurt. So that likely would see the field more. It's possible, but it's just not something that I think is likely.
Oh God, it's too early for the dad jokes. Any interest in Denver? They're an interesting one too, where They stink. You want to talk about a team that stinks? We were talking about the Raiders earlier. Mike, at least the Raiders score some points every once in a while. The Broncos can't score on anybody. And now Jerry Jeudy is out. Obviously, Javonte Williams has been out. KJ Hamler is out. I believe the starting 3 wide receiver set is going to be Courtland Sutton, Tyree Cleveland, and Kendall Hinton. Yes, Kendall Hinton, the once upon a time emergency quarterback for the Denver Broncos last year, 2 years ago, whatever DFS slate that was. They are changing their play caller, which is what Donnie brings up here. The matchup is good. Sutton, if Sutton weren't going to be so popular, we might be having a little bit different conversation, but everybody's going to this. And it's like, yeah, he got 11. Jerry Jeudy got hurt in the first quarter last week. Sutton got 11 targets in a good matchup, and he didn't do shit. Like, does that mean he won't do it today? No, but the whole field is like ignoring kind of the Broncos' incompetence. I want to do the opposite, like the Raiders thing. If everyone's going to ignore the fact that Davante Adams is still good at football, same with Courtland Sutton. Like if he was going to be 5%, we would be like, give me all the Courtland Sutton. But he's going to be one of the highest owned wide receivers. That's my struggle. What do you think about Denver today?
Yeah, I don't mind landing there if that's like if I'm building a game stack for one of the games that I like. Yeah, I don't mind landing on one of the bigger pieces. Like DeLuuch, Kendall Hinton is 3,600 on DraftKings. So he's one of the better guys in that kind of price range. But I'm not going out of my way to land there. There's some possible upside in the unknown of change in play callers. Like I don't know, man. Like this offense is so bad. Like I don't have as much confidence in this as I did say with the Raiders, 2 weeks ago. Because like there's a big difference between Davante Adams and everybody else. So I don't mind. I'm not going to play Courtland Sutton as like a piece I need to get to if he's chalky.
Yeah, and I think he everything about it makes sense from like we talked about this on a lot of shows over the course of the years. It's like football is just people will treat it like basketball, but that's just not how it works. You know what I mean? Like you don't say X player is out, right? LeBron James is out. We're gonna jam all that usage to Anthony Davis, and whoever subs in the starting lineup for him is going to get a requisite number of points, because that's just how it works when you run up and down a basketball floor for 35 minutes. In a football game, you need efficiency from your offense. Not just Deontay Johnson hasn't been relevant for fantasy like DFS tournaments for like almost 2 years, and the dude gets double-digit. He's one of the leaders in targets in the league for 2 straight years. But when your offense can't move the ball, you're getting low value targets. It's tough to win tournaments with you. And then when you that's okay. If people aren't going to play you, those are good guys to bet on. But if everyone's going to play you, that's when I just I don't know, man. Like you talked about Devonta Smith. Like I can play Devonta Smith or Gabe Davis on the Eagles or the Bills at lower ownership than this guy. I don't know. I just want to go to some of those other guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the starting point for your lineup decisions should always be like the point total of the game, right? Like that's what I'm interested in doing, because we're generally going to be playing some kind of stack in tournaments. And this week for me, it's Chicago, Atlanta, a little bit, much more the Buffalo Cleveland game, like much more the Philly Indy game, and Dallas and Minnesota, something we haven't talked about that much. Like those are the games that I'm really interested in stacking, and then I'm also thinking of who can get 2 touchdowns from other games, right? Like, so I could see Lamar Jackson getting 2 touchdowns at low ownership, like 2 rushing touchdowns, or even Mark Andrews, right? Getting, catching 2 touchdowns, or, Kenny Drake, because they're heavily favored at home. So they've got a high implied point total. So that's the thing that I'm interested in. And then any screaming value pieces, that's what I'm interested in when I'm building my lineups. Like, I don't necessarily want to play, target a bunch of guys from the Raiders Broncos game. Just it's 41.5 points, and offense looked pretty broken. Yeah, somebody's going to score a touchdown, but there's going to be multiple touchdowns scored in that game. But there's not necessarily going to be a guy who puts up a score that I had to have to win a tournament.
100%. I like that. We bring that up on a lot of the shows. You usually bring it up, and I'm glad to reiterate that, because it's people will walk through. They're like, well, somebody's got to do something for the Broncos, right? And I'm like, yeah, probably. Somebody's probably going to score. Somebody's probably going to catch. Kendall Hinton caught 4 passes last week, right? That's fine. But what are the chances that guy I need to have, right? Go look at the winning tournament teams every week. And it's like, yeah, there might be a dud here or that, like a guy that doesn't smash on the team, but like you need to use all those bullets in every single lineup to be like, how do you find the guy that scores 40? Well, you play a bunch of guys who can score 40 on your team, right? You don't jam in a bunch of guys like Tyree Cleveland or Kendall Hinton into your lineups because, like, they're just like, they can help you get to those other guys sometimes. Sometimes we need them, of course. But, like, you just want the upside across the board. This is a break sass. This is kind of funny. Can Mixon score two touchdowns today? I want to talk about that game really quickly, and then I want to talk about the Dallas-Minnesota game that you talked about. The Bengals-Steelers game is kind of fascinating to me. I could see it being a total gross slog, and I could kind of see it being like T. Higgins has 102, and George Pickens caught a long touchdown. Mixon has 2 touchdowns. I could see all of the plays seem interesting to me, but then also the game doesn't seem super interesting to me. Does that make any sense? I'm like attracted to this game and also hate it at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's actually reasonable because it's got a low point total, but I think I put it on the expert survey as my game that I think could exceed its point total.
Me too.
By the most, yeah. So we did just watch Joe Mixon score 5 touchdowns, so we should keep that in mind. Like, and especially on FanDuel, he's 9,000. That's really expensive. But on DraftKings, he's 7,400. So that's a huge difference. So he's much more attractive on DraftKings. And so yeah, so like it's tough. I'm going to play some of them on FanDuel in my 150 set, but it's more of a counting on a 5 touchdown game again. On DraftKings, I think you can mix them in like a little bit more liberally. You can play like single entry because he is going to, I think, fall in ownership. Probably below some of the other guys that we're looking at. And there's still some uncertainty with the Steelers offense, having a rookie quarterback who came mid-season or after a few games, at least, with Trubisky starting the season as the starter, where we could see the Steelers offense get a lot better with a rookie quarterback or, a prime like rookie wide receiver. We could see this offense get better as the season goes on, more than people are expecting, and surprise some people. I just don't know if it's going to happen here with like a point total below 40.
I tagged Kenny Pickett, and I'm pulling Kenny Pickett up here, who you're discussing with the rookie quarterback, just because I think, 2% owned on both sides. I don't really think he's a FanDuel play, but on DraftKings, where it's like, dude, you get $3,000 of savings down to him off of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, and more than like 2,500 or whatever off of Justin Fields, who of course I like Justin Fields, but just 2 weeks ago we were playing Justin Fields at this price. Now Justin Fields is priced like Jalen Hurts, and we have some of these guys like a Kenny Pickett down here, who I think the most likely thing that comes out is he plays average again and scores 15 fantasy points or whatever. But just growth is not linear for like human beings and football players. Like sometimes you just figure it out, right? And this is a reasonable matchup. The Bengals are down some guys in the secondary, including their best corner. I don't expect it to blow up, but he has some good weapons. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, Najee / Jalen Warren. Like, it's a reasonable offense. If this game, like you mentioned, exceeded that, ended up with 60 points or 55 points or whatever, would I be surprised? Honestly, not really, because there's a lot of offensive talent on both sides. So I think it's like it's very difficult because you have to forego kind of the Bills, Eagles, whatever. But I think you can do some fun things with that type of a game of like a single stack Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, and use one of the Bengals, who we didn't really discuss a lot. Jamar Chase is still out, which hurts their offense. But it also, right, no one's going to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd as much as they are Cortland Sutton. But they have the same situation, except they have a really good quarterback and like a really good offense. And so I kind of like some even like little secondary correlations within this game, because I think it can help set you apart within maybe your Bills stack or whatever, just because there's a lot of upside in all these individual names. Maybe the game doesn't even go nuts, but T. Higgins has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? It's 21-17, but it goes to the superstars. So I kind of like this game for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's it's the epitome of the game that I think is good for the really large tournaments, right? Because I think it's going to be low owned. Like you put up Kenny Pickett there, and with 2.5% ownership. Again, in my 150 lineup build, I probably want to be double that. That I'm entering in like a million majors. Because there's a path there, and it tends to be like concentrated offenses, which is great. And like we just saw Joe Mixon score 5 touchdowns. Like maybe he puts in like 2 or 3, and that'll pay off his salary. Or maybe it's T. Higgins this week, and he's getting played at really low ownership, and he's the guy that gets a couple of touchdowns. So there are pieces there that I'm a little bit higher on than say like the other game we were just talking about, the Denver Raiders.
Yeah. And then we'll get to Rob. I see your question in the chat, and I want to get to that Cowboys Vikings game because I think it's kind of the last like stack worthy game. I know, and some people are bringing up Detroit and the Giants and stuff. I don't want to totally forego that. We'll talk maybe a little bit about that one too. But from a really actually exciting game perspective, I think the Cowboys is kind of the last one. Hit some questions really quickly. You did mention like Melvin, not as like a play, but as kind of like. Who else do I play around the David Montgomery, Kenyon Drake, et cetera? Are you playing any Melvin today?
He's not a guy I'm going out of my way for because there's Latavius Murray's there too. So
Chase Edmonds is also on the team, correct? And I think gonna probably get some work now.
Yeah, exactly. So like with 3 running backs, we don't know how it's gonna shape up.
Yeah, not too into Melvin. I get again no Javonte, maybe losing some wide receivers might theoretically make sense, but not a lot has made sense on the Broncos this year. I'm not going to try to pretend that Melvin is just going to be in a committee, and they clearly don't love him very much. It just is what it is. We kind of have to accept reality at some point, and he's just not really a fantasy relevant player. He might have a decent game again, like he scored double-digit TK points last week, but like, show me a scenario in which he wins you a tournament. I can't even figure it out. Honestly, I don't even know one. What about this? Donnie asked about Mark Andrews. Are you playing any Andrews today? Because this is a fairly interesting point where, everybody's playing the 4K and down tight ends, and you have no one playing Mark Andrews. They don't have Rashad Bateman or whatever. I understand the risk, but are you interested in him?
Yeah, I like Mark Andrews a lot because he's the one tight end that could really break the slate. Like it would shock nobody if he caught 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns, right? So I love Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews pairing because they're expected to kind of roll over Carolina. I guess the concern with Andrews is that maybe he's like still hurt more than they're kind of letting on. It's a shoulder injuries like that. I think could be bad for pass catchers. He's got to like raise your arms. But yeah, maybe he is like the downtime. I think they're coming off the bye, so got healthy there. So I love Mark Andrews as a play. I always do. I always like Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, just because a rushing quarterback that sometimes carries low ownership. Then you fill it in with the tight end pass catcher, his favorite target anyway. So yeah, like Mark Andrews.
I know, again, we keep mentioning like kind of all these expensive guys. So, maybe if you have some like crazy punts you want to get to, the crunch time folks might be able to cover some of your wild and crazy punts. Also, since we shot down the Kendall Hintons of the world. But like when you take a step back and you're like, Carolina is getting destroyed every single week. JC Horn is playing, but they lost Dante Jackson, their other corner. They're beat. They have a kind of a talented defense when at full strength, but it's kind of more of like a rangy athletic defense. They play pretty good pass defense when they're healthy. Well, they're not healthy. They fired the coach. They're just getting destroyed. And so you have Lamar Jackson at no ownership. People will probably play Hurts, in our superstar quarterback pecking order, Allen, Hurts, and then Lamar is unowned. He has the most rushing upside out of all those guys. I know the other two run really well, but nobody runs like Lamar at the quarterback position. And he has one clear-cut stacking partner at the one position that you could lap the field, right? If he has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, you just dominated the field at tight end. And so it's a really interesting. There's actually also like you can play DJ Moore as a bring back. You can play Donta Foreman on the other side. If Kenyon Drake picks up ownership, you're getting leverage off of Kenyon Drake with this stack. It's pretty interesting. I think it's a pretty darn good tournament play. couple more questions really quickly. We talked about this one, Noel. I think we're both a little bit more pro Gibson, but honestly, if you need the savings, I think Robinson is fine. For me, I talked about the Bengals wide receivers. I do prefer T. Higgins, but I think the field prefers T. Higgins. I think Tyler Boyd is like a dollar store version of your Devonta Smith take from earlier. It's like, I don't expect the offense to be nearly as effective as the Eagles. Maybe not quite the dynamic player, but like, who the hell else are they going to throw the ball to without Jamar Chase besides these two guys? Boyd did have a monster game not that long ago that flashed his ceiling. I think both of them are pretty good. Single entry plays as like a last piece, or maybe you play them with Freiermuth or you play them with Pickens or something. I think they're pretty good plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I strongly prefer T. Higgins to Tyler Boyd, but he's more expensive. So, you might not be able to fit T. Higgins, but if you have the salary, I'd go for Higgins.
Yeah, Gridiron. John mentioned McKenzie earlier. I think he's also super fascinating for tournaments in Bill stacks. I'm always one that likes to gal brain a little bit onto the, like, you'll play Diggs, but then bringing along McKenzie or Knox or something like that. I really like that in my Bills stacks. It works 1 out of 10 times or whatever. But when Isaiah McKenzie catches 2 touchdowns or Dawson Knox catches 2 touchdowns, and you play them over Paris Campbell or over Nico Collins, you just crush everybody. Sorry, Doug. Didn't mean to shoot down your Melvin Gordon love, but such is life. Shout out to you, Breaks. I hope you're I hope you're not playing. Hope you're not playing too much money today. I appreciate you. I would rather play WW. I would rather play the Russell Wilson stack than the Stafford stack. I mean, Stafford couldn't do anything with Cooper Kupp in the lineup. Now Cooper Kupp is not playing. I can't do it. Let's get to the Cowboys and Vikings, and then we'll get to your question here, Drew, because it'll kind of wrap it up. So I actually want to start, oddly enough, there was a report this morning for the Cowboys-Vikings game that Tony Pollard is going to get more work than Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think that the field is going to react to this. I'm not even saying that they should, because Zeke is going to play. But it's fascinating to me on a week where we've kind of been not in love with a lot of running backs, that Tony Pollard in a reasonable matchup, maybe getting a more lion's share of the work, could be pretty low owned. Are you going to get to any Pollard today and then kind of talk about how you're approaching this game?
So I think he's priced up on FanDuel, but I think he's the same price. So yeah, he's $1,000 more expensive than he was last week on FanDuel. That's a huge jump in price. And then you've got Ezekiel Elliott coming back. So on FanDuel, he's not a guy that I love. On DraftKings, he's the same price, I believe, that he was last week.
Correct. Yes.
And so that makes it a little bit more, interesting. So I do like Pollard a little bit on DraftKings. He's a little bit of a sneaky play because I do think people are going to play him because Ezekiel Elliott's back. But you're kind of counting on there being a little bit of subterfuge there where, Ezekiel Elliott's back, but really he's a little bit hurt and they're making Pollard the main guy now. And I don't necessarily know that I want to invest a ton of money in that, but I think he's a reasonable play, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's tough because 2 weeks ago against the Bears, he was like a lock button because the Bears defense is just an abomination and Zeke was out. He only got not even 60% of the snaps that week. He was just super efficient. Then last week we saw him. The only reason he got there in a little bit tougher matchup, he played almost all the snaps. He played 87% of the snaps. So if that goes back, the Vikings are more so like a Packers matchup to me than a Bears or a Lions. If he goes back to that, even if he's it's 60-40, 60 Pollard, 40 Zeke against the Vikings, it's possible he's a big play threat. Is he really going to break the slate? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to see. More of a sprinkle. Again, if I'm 150ing, I would want to have some in the scenario. I want to have some. He's 8% on DraftKings. Maybe I have 10%. something like that, or match the field, maybe a little. I'm not going crazy basically with Tony Pollard. But what about this game though? Because Tony Pollard does seem interesting. We got two of the best young wide receivers in the NFL drawing. They both had like 15 or 16 targets last week. I think that there's a lot of potential for fireworks with Dak, CD, Jefferson. There's some decent cheap pieces as well, whether it be Gallup, KJ Osborne, Dalton Schultz. There's a lot of kind of fun plays in this game. What are you doing with this one?
Yeah, I think it's one of the games I'm targeting. It's got one of the higher point totals. You said exactly like the two star wide receivers. I mean, and then you can make a little bit of a mini stack with that and try to use like another quarterback, but it's tough because then you're really starting to run out of salary. But yeah, I love the idea of pairing like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, or even pairing CeeDee Lamb and Dalvin Cook, who's a running back probably not going to see as much ownership as some of the other running backs we've talked about, just because they're on paper better value plays. But I love the idea of pairing a couple of these guys from this game. I think Cousins and Dak Prescott are in play as well. Like I like Dak Prescott now. He's significantly cheaper than Justin Fields. Like I'd rather play Dak in a game that's got a higher point total.
100%, $1,000 cheaper than Justin Fields. What a world! What a crazy world we live in now. Like if you'd have told me this, even like, yeah, like even not that long ago, yeah, that I'm like, wait, Justin Fields is like almost 8K on DraftKings and Dak is 6,600, and Justin Fields is double the ownership. Like what just happened? What did the Monstars come in and infuse Justin Fields with some juice? We do got to get out of here in a second. I see all your questions and comments. They are awesome. The crunch time people will be here to Drizzy, Luuch, and Kristi are coming in after us in just a second, and they will hit as much of the stuff as they can leading up to lock. And they will absolutely crush it. Keep the questions coming. Before we get out of here, what we try to do every single week is discuss what I'll call a conviction play. What is the one thing that each of us say, this is what you got to have in tournaments this week? This is going to be on the winning Millie Maker team, whatever. John, the last time he came on the show, literally called his shot and shipped tournaments with this. So we have a high bar to live up to. But what's your conviction play this week, John?
Conviction play has got to be like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But I'll say if you want to get sneaky, I'd say Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor.
Ooh, I like that. So you're can I even inject in that you're probably going to play Devonta Smith on that team? We're going to get the long Devonta Smith touchdown, maybe some Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns, and JT on the other side. I love that. I am going to go to these the building off of what you said. The secondary wide receivers on these superstar offenses are kind of getting overlooked. Devonta Smith and Gabe Davis. They are home run threats. They have just as much upside as almost any wide receiver on the entire slate. They are on the best offenses in the NFL in good matchups. And just kind of how the slate is breaking down, people are going to go get Diggs or Amon-Ra or whatever, and people are going to use the Decos and Paris Campbells and DPJs. We can just live in that middle a little bit. Get your Devonta Smith, get your Gabe Davis, and those guys have monster upside. So I really like that. So I'll say Gabe Davis and Devonta Smith. There we go. The Gabe Devonta pairing. Thanks for hanging out with us. Crunch time is coming up here in just a few minutes. Of course, thank you to John and thank you to producer Steve on the ones and twos. And we will see you guys in week 12.
We're here back at the Fantasy Bar with your pints and picks for Week 11, presented by BetMGM. Use promo code GRINDERS for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. First pick for us this week, we're rolling with the Colts, plus 6.5. I like this spot for the Colts here. Really got the run game going last week against the Raiders. I think they do that again this week against Philadelphia. Eagles, very good against the pass, 28th DVOA against the run. Look for Jonathan Taylor to have another big game. Colts covering this 6.5. Next pick for us, the Dallas Cowboys on the road, minus 1.5. I think a lot of people are going to look at this game, say, how can Minnesota be underdogs at home? Dallas coming off a loss in Green Bay. I think they rebound here. I think they're the better team. I think the public going to be all over the Vikings. Get the money backing the Cowboys I'm rolling with the boys, -1.5. That'll do it here for Pints and Picks for Week 11. For BetMGM, for RotoGrinders, and for ScoresAndOdds.com, I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll see you next week.
What's up, everybody? Sunday, November 20th, NFL football, RotoGrinders crunch time. Man, it's always a tough act to follow. SquirrelPatrol and Ebeimfohr bringing the heat, and you got to love it. I'm TheLuuch, and I got two of my good friends here with me today, and it's 12:30 Eastern. We're almost here at kickoff. Kristi, good to see you again. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Always good to see you guys. I just love this part of the slate where we're kind of finishing things up here and kind of getting the last picks in before the slate starts. So yeah, good to see you guys.
Awesome. Dre, good to see you again. We had a couple of shows this week, and we were breaking down some NBA action, but now it's on to football. What's going on, man?
I'm going pretty good over here, trying to, do what I always do, trying to get the last minute lineups in. But other than that, doing well. Feel good about the slate after dissecting it all the past 2 nights.
Check out scoresandodds.com. We do a lot of great stuff over there. Parlay IQ is amazing if you're into single game parlays and you want to see some advanced stuff in terms of correlating them and looking at odds and shopping your odds. You definitely want to check out Parlay IQ at scoresandodds.com. Also, our FanDuel single entry series is back. Don't forget to reserve your entry in the $5, the $33, or the $100 GPPs. Get in on the action for both weekly and seasonal prizes. And lastly, if you're in a legal sports betting state, I don't know why you're not signed up for FanDuel Sportsbook yet. You can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. And also, another week in another state looking at legalized sports betting, and it basically has arrived in Maryland. So shout out to my Maryland people. It's you don't have to drive to the borders of Pennsylvania or whatever anymore. So save a little bit on gas money and go over there, register on FanDuel, get a no-sweat first bet. And we're ready getting questions rolling in. I love it. Rob dropping in some FanDuel Cash questions. So drop some questions in the YouTube chat and the Discord, and I will get to them. And if I miss them, I'm really sorry because we got to love the bots and all the spam. Just yell at me or send the question again. We'll get them in there. Without further ado, let's go to quarterback. This is turning into one of my favorite slates to build because there's so many angles here today. So, Kristi, I'll start it with you. Talk to me about quarterback. What are you looking at today?
Yeah, so I found myself with a pretty small pool for quarterback this week. I know there's a lot of great options, but two of my favorite plays and guys that I'm overweight on are Justin Fields, Josh Allen. No surprise, they're both going to carry a ton of ownership on both sites. But with the Buffalo game being moved to Detroit, certainly have interest in that. I think they bounce back here. Tough loss against Minnesota last week. So I really love that game. Justin Fields, what's not to love? The rushing upside alone from that guy is incredible. He's been doing it week after week. It will be interesting to see where his ownership lands. I know we have him at about 13% or so right now, but definitely love him. A couple of other guys, Jalen Hurts, I think, he's going to maybe get a little overlooked, and he's certainly a great option. Do like him. Dak Prescott, a lot of interest in that Minnesota-Dallas game too. So I think you can either go Prescott or Cousins in tournaments. Certainly don't mind that. And then maybe just a couple of other, guys to save some money. You could go to Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke, just for some cheap plays. But I will say for me, it's really Justin Fields and Josh Allen carrying the ownership in the bulk of my lineups today.
Andre, what are you looking at over there?
Quarterback has been whirlwind for me this week. I'm going back to the well on a guy that failed me before, and Russell Wilson. He's just in too good of a matchup. Kind of hard to get away from him, but I love the spot against Vegas today. So I'm playing Russell Wilson, playing a little bit of Joe Burrow against Pittsburgh. I'm gonna have a little bit of Josh. I'm gonna try to get as much Josh Allen as I can, but the way I want that with that game, and the way my lineups are set up right now, it's hard to get a lot of him. But I'm trying to get as much of him as I possibly can. I like Lamar Jackson as well. Jalen Hurts, I think, is one that's being, like Kristi said, being a little bit overlooked. I think he's in a phenomenal matchup. And then, as Squirrel said, running it back with JT, I think it's a great option, which most people are going to run it back with Paris Campbell. So I like that option as well. Dak Prescott, another one. I think they'll come in a lot less ownership than we have to. Play a little bit of Marcus Mariota, and then the last but not least, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys covered a lot of ground there. Daniel Jones could be in a really good game environment. Joe Burrow, I've been landing on a little bit too, kind of right in the middle of that price range there. Of course, you have Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar, and Fields all have like killer rushing upside. You know, you love getting to those guys, but Burrow's an interesting spot too, I think, coming off the bye, and Higgins and Boyd are kind of easy to get to. Anyway, let's go on to running back here. You guys, you mentioned John Taylor, and Joe Mixon has some expert blips on our lineup HQ here. Alvin Kamara is pretty affordable. David Montgomery against Atlanta, on paper sounds like a good matchup. Saquon is looking like he's going to carry quite a bit of ownership against Detroit, rightfully so. Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards not playing today, so that's kind of an interesting one as well. And Tony Pollard, who was mega chalk, looks really good. Mega chalk the last couple of weeks, I meant, without Zeke, looked really good. Zeke is apparently in the fold a little bit. Pollard, in terms of coach speak land, should out-touch Zeke, but who knows? I mean, I really like that Vikings-Cowboys game, so I know in the last show they weren't crazy about Pollard, but it's super easy to go overweight on him and not kind of kill all of your builds. So a lot of angles to go here. Kristi, who are you prioritizing at running back?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting angles for sure. Because I have so much interest in maybe some higher priced, like Josh Allen, and we'll get to some of the receivers later. Some of the guys that I like, you mentioned David Montgomery. He's at such a good price point. No Khalil Herbert. The only downside is, Justin Fields could, get some of those touchdowns that maybe should go to Montgomery, but his price is so good. Over on FanDuel at 6,200, he really makes a lot work. So I think he's a really great cash game play. Someone that have interest in. You mentioned Kamara too. Over on FanDuel, he's just 7,500, so really good price point. He has not done much the last couple of weeks, but he's in a really good spot this week. So someone that's certainly interesting. Josh Jacobs is projecting pretty good for ownership too. Pretty good price point over on DraftKings, 7,500. Dameon Pierce continues just to get a ton of touches in that offense. You talked about Saquon Barkley. I mean, he is in just a premier matchup against Detroit. If you're looking to spend up, I mean, he is definitely one of the top guys. Talked a little bit about Mixon. I definitely prefer him over on DraftKings at 7,400. He's priced up at $9K on FanDuel. But I do like Mixon, with Jamar Chase still being out. You guys touched on that game a little bit, liking Burrow. I think there are some interesting pieces in that Cincinnati game. Ramondre Stevenson, still a really good price point too, over on DraftKings. So I like him quite a bit. And then Jonathan Taylor, I tagged him as a core play. We saw the upside and what we loved about him going into the season. And I know, I think that Dion is back this week, but still, I think it's Taylor's backfield, and he has a ton of upside, still has a really good price point. And then I also have interest in the Washington running backs, finding myself, Brian Robinson a little bit over on FanDuel. If you're really looking to pay up at some of the receiver spots, I think he's worth a shot. I mean, he had a lot of touches last game, hasn't been great with them, but at his price point doesn't have to do a lot. Both he and Gibson, I think you can put in there. And then, like you said, Pollard, I think it's not going to take much to go overweight. And I think he's an extremely interesting tournament play as well.
Andre, anything to add? Anybody else you're looking at?
I think pretty much she nailed it with pretty much all the running backs. Did you mention? I don't know if you mentioned Cordell Patterson. I like him.
I did. No, that's it. You know what? That's a great one, Dre.
I love him a lot today in this spot. I think we're not taking account for him. I feel like, and he's going to come in probably hardly own, probably under 5%. And
I love it.
And I think he's someone that could easily break the slate. So he's really efficient with his runs and carries and touches. So that's one thing I love about him. So I think he's a fantastic GPP play. I think we should try to get well over the field on him. Everyone else, I pretty much agree with Kristi on. Honestly, I might even get. I really want to get over on both these Washington running backs, Gibson and Robinson. So I'm gonna have a little bit of both. I wouldn't recommend playing them both in the same lineup, but I think they both are fantastic plays. And might get a little bit of Nick Chubb, not as much. Josh Jacobs I like a lot too. Other than that, I pretty much Kristi nailed it.
Cool. Drop your questions in the chat. We're making good time here. We'll definitely get to your questions. Discord, YouTube, you name it. We'll be here. Wide receiver. It's going to get fun here. We got some games that could be a shootout. And we're definitely going to need some value with all the high-priced quarterbacks everyone's looking at here. So, Kristi, I'll throw it back over to you. Wide receiver, what do you like today?
Yeah, like you said, we're going to need some value here too, but there are certainly a couple of guys that I like that are priced up. I like both CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson in that Minnesota-Dallas game. I think they make an interesting pairing, have a lot of interest there. Stephon Diggs, in your Allen lineups, I like him. I'm maybe not as much on him. I really like Gabe Davis. Going back to him this week, I think his price point is still really, really good. 7,100 on FanDuel, just 6,500 on DK. So I just like the upside that he brings. His floor is low, but he does get a good matchup. You save a little bit of money from Diggs. So for me, Gabe Davis is kind of a core piece for me this week to get exposure to that Buffalo game. Terry McLaurin, I think his price over on DraftKings is amazing. 5,900, got to be one of the better plays over there. We've been talking about that Washington game. I think McLaurin, Robinson, Gibson, all those guys are really great. So I think he's a great play. Devontae Smith, probably a little bit more over on FanDuel, but with no Goddard this week, I think Devontae Smith is going to get a lot of catches, so certainly have interest there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, still just, kind of getting it done, still at a really good price point, 7.2K over on DraftKings, like Amon-Ra. And then if you're looking to save, which we are, there's some guys that really fit the bill. And I'll throw Mooney in there too. He was a guy that I tagged, especially on those Fields teams. Really, really like him. Wrote a bet up on him this week as well. But for some guys to save, I think we're looking at guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he's a really great run back in that Buffalo game. Very cheap. He's been really efficient with his catches too. Garrett Wilson, just 4,900 on DraftKings. And then you're looking at a couple more guys like Paris Campbell, Nico Collins, which are going to be a little bit chalkier than I would like for guys like that. But we're going to need some money to save. And those are a couple of guys that really fit the bill, for kind of saving money.
A couple of disgusting value plays I'll throw in there before I throw it over to the Dre is I don't hate DJ Moore with Baker Mayfield and nobody else is left there. I have an uncomfortable amount of DJ Chark right now without Josh Reynolds and TJ Hawkinson's not there. So Chark, fresh off IR, maybe in a decent game environment. Maybe I'll throw up at halftime. I don't know. And I love the McLaurin call. I mean, since Heineke's been in, the target market share has been up. We know he's the air yard guy. He looked great against the Eagles last week as well. So I like that McLaurin call quite a bit. And, I know Wan'Dale Robinson and Golladay are both active, but I don't hate Darius Slayton if you're throwing 150 out there. I don't know. We saw his big playability. The Lions can't play defense. That's the end of my mini rant. On to you, Dre. Talk to me here.
All right, from friend to friend. Don't play DJ Moore, please.
I want to make you play him even more. I hate when people tell me no, Dre.
It's just like DJ Moore. He's a good. I think he's a great player, but Baker Mayfield does not throw to this guy for some reason. Like he has not all season. I don't see what the difference.
He has to. Now. There's no Robbie. There's no Robbie Anderson. There's no McCaffrey to check down to.
You'll find somebody else. I'm really confident in that one, but I love all the calls. I especially the Terry McLaurin call. Like that's one of my favorite receivers. As long as Heineke is starting, you have to go with him. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is in an interesting spot today. I know we have some of the Bills defensive guys coming back, but not all of them. So I think he's still. I think this is probably like one of the last weeks for at least DPJ. You could without a full secondary that they have. You can get with DPJ a lot. So I like him and Mari Cooper as well. Slayton, I love today a lot. CeeDee Lamb is another good option. I think you should try to get as much Justin Jefferson as possible too, as well as George Pickens. I kind of like him against the Saints secondary, who we continue to. I mean, not the Saints secondary. Sorry, they played them last week against the secondary of the Bengals, who continuously to have some guys out. So. I think that he's a phenomenal play. I do like Mooney a lot, and I do also like even take some shots with Adam Thielen. AJ Brown's going to go a little bit overlooked, so I like him a lot as well too. And yeah, that's pretty much besides the main guys. Some of the guys that you can use to get different.
There's ever going to be a week, right? And Kristi, I know you wrote up on RotoGrinders. I know you wrote up Matt Stafford under passing yards, and I think it's a good call. Is Allen Robinson ever going to do anything?
I know. I don't feel good about him either. I really don't.
Yeah, I know.
He could be the only receiver on the island, and I still want to pick him.
All right, Dre. Allen Robinson or DJ Moore? None. None of the above.
Insert myself.
All right. Hey, if you were min price on DK, I'd consider it on this slate, but. Anyway, 12:43, guys. We're getting closer to question time. Let's talk about tight end. Looks like Mark Andrews is finally back. This is not a Travis Kelce slate. That being said, there are a bunch of tight ends who are a little volatile, but there are plenty of them that you can go down to at value spots here. Whether it's Hayden Hurst or DeLuuch, or maybe you pay up for Hawkinson. You can make a case for Higbee without Cooper Kupp. Dawson Knox, a cheap piece of the potential high scoring game. And every time I would turn my head, Juwan Johnson's catching a touchdown in New Orleans, by the way, too, Dre. Yep. So Kristi, tight end, let's hear it.
Yeah, you threw out a lot of good plays I was going to talk about too. And I was going to mention Juwan Johnson is just kind of a sleeper. No one's really talking about him, but he's getting it done. He's still really cheap. For tight end, got to start out at the top. Mark Andrews is back. I'm going to have a ton of interest in him just because no one's going to play him carrying a questionable tag all week. So I think, there's a way to get really different there, paying up for Andrews. That being said, there's a lot of cheap value that's really interesting. Dalton Schultz in that Minnesota-Dallas game, obviously a great play. Kyle Pitts, I have interest in him just in that Atlanta-Chicago game. He's a good bring back. I really like Dre's Patterson call. I think that's just a phenomenal one. A sneaky running back play that he mentioned earlier. Dolchik, like you said, that Denver game, they're beat up, no Judy. I think he's an interesting play. And Dawson Knox, too. He's really cheap on both sites, 3.2K, DraftKings, 5.1K on FanDuel. I just like getting exposure to that game. He's a really cheap way to do it. He probably needs to get a touchdown to come through, but I think that's very, very possible. Cole Kmet, I have a ton of interest in him with Fields pairing. He's priced up a little bit now. But we've seen his upside and kind of the chemistry that they have. He could easily score 2 touchdowns. So I like Cole Kmet quite a bit for tournaments. I think you mentioned Hayden Hurst too. I think he's a fine punt. And then another guy that I'm overweight on too is TJ Hawkinson. He's got 19 targets in the first 2 games as a Minnesota Viking. Great chemistry there. He can blow up a slate. Back in Detroit, he put up 40 points early on in the season. So I love TJ Hawkinson. And, again, reasonable price point at just 5.3K over on DraftKings. So he's someone I have a ton of interest in.
Yeah, a lot of good calls there. I like it quite a bit. Dre, talk to me about tight end here. We didn't mention Kyle Pitts. And, speaking about a guy who's just been disappointing, but he gets the target market share, he gets the air yard market share, but it's such a low volume, volatile pass attack in Atlanta. You have any Kyle Pitts interest? He's cheap on DraftKings.
I do have a lot. I think he definitely is in the spot where he can hopefully continue to break out, have a good game. I see the trend trending more positively, and also the targets are there for him a lot most of the week. So he's someone I definitely want to get in my lineups, because all he has to do is just catch more than 2 receptions and possibly get an end zone, and he'll have the yardage, and he could therefore be a breakout play on the slate. So I'm going to get as much of him as I possibly can. I don't even mind running. I said Marcus Mariota, don't mind using him with him as well. David Njoku, I think it's another option who's coming back today from Cleveland. I think he's in play. I love the T.J. Hawkinson call that Kristi said. I love him in this spot today. No one's really going to be playing him a lot, and I think he is going to get targeted a lot. And it's going to continue to be a big focal point of this offense. 10 and 9 targets over the past 2 weeks since he's been there. I think you need a roster him as much as you possibly can. Mark Andrews' call as well. I think he's a phenomenal play. Another one that no one's going to be wanting to spend up for. Cole Kmet continues to be someone you have to continue, I think, to look at today. I think Tyler Higbee, if you want to play someone instead of Allen Robinson, you play Tyler Higbee. LaLuuch, I think that's a good play. But and Greg Dulcich as well, someone to be high on, and Dalton Schultz.
Guys, have any defenses that are catching your attention here today?
Nothing in particular for me.
Nothing in particular, but if I'm paying up, I do like the Patriots defense quite a bit. You do have to pay for them. I'm finding myself saving a lot of money, but I do like the Patriots at the top.
Okay. Our first question from our Discord earlier today was from JMVP. He said, cash seems a little bit tricky on DraftKings. Do you guys have anybody that you're prioritizing specifically on DK today for cash games?
Well, one of the guys I think is a really good cash game play is Terry McLaurin, just because of his price point over there. I think he's a real good play.
Yeah, Dre, any thoughts on DK Cash? In a nutshell here.
I don't really play cash, so I'm not gonna have any takes on that. Sorry.
Okay. That's fair. Keep the questions rolling in. We'll get to them. Favorite contrarian stack for FanDuel, Kristi and Dre. Anything off the wall? Of course, we know Josh Allen and the Bills look pretty popular. So, and so do the Vikings and the Cowboys, of course.
Yep.
That, however you want to mix and match players from that game, I think we're all in agreement. Like, we can't argue with you. So, how about let's take those 2 games out of the way? Anybody else other than those 2 games you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, I'll throw out there, and you guys kind of talked a little bit about him too, and we didn't spend a ton of time, but I think your Joe Burrow and that Cincinnati call, I think there's some interesting pieces there. So I think that's an interesting GPP game stack at very, very low ownership.
Dre?
I agree. Joe Burrow and Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson going back to Denver. Hey, he had 280 against Tennessee, But
This is the time, and he had his best game of the season against Vegas. So it's either now or never for him, in my opinion. So I just hope that it's now.
Okay. Let's see. Fields, man. All right. I don't know. I'm trying to look at Champ's question in the Discord. I can't. I'll have to come back to it because my brain's on overload right now. I will come back to it, Champ. Garrett Wilson and McLaurin, or People Jones and Devontae Smith for DK Cash?
I think I'd take the McLaurin one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to decipher this. Is it a 4v4 for? I don't know. Do you guys have Discord open? Let me know if Champ's question is a 4v4. I'm looking at it. Anyway, DK Cash, would you rather have Drake and Diggs or Stevenson and CD Lamb? Dre, I'll throw it over to you.
Ooh, Drake and Diggs. Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go Drake and Diggs.
Okay. Another similar one, Diggs and Drake or Amon-Ra St. Brown and Ramondre Stevenson, Kristi, for cash.
I think I'd take St. Brown and Stevenson.
Okay.
Is it for DK?
It's DK.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Champ. I understand this one. Sorry, I only had a little coffee today. Would you rather have Dameon Pierce or Kenyon Drake today with Gus Edwards out? Dre, what do you think?
Goodness, that's tough. I'm gonna have to say Drake. Yeah, I must have to say Kenyon Drake. I think he'll be lesser owned. I think Dameon Pierce. Well, I don't know because everyone's been talking down on Dameon Pierce lately. So maybe his ownership might come in a little bit less. So probably, maybe Dameon Pierce.
Washington's pretty against the run. Not gonna lie, but Pierce gets a lot of volume, and anything can happen. So it's a tough call. FanDuel single entry question from Jay Sams. Kristi, I'll go to you. Since running back isn't all appealing, says Jay Sams, do you hate the idea of spending down at both running back spots and then kind of paying up that wide receiver?
No, not at all. In fact, that's what I have in my single entry right now is I've paid down at running back just because you've got the David Montgomerys, you've got Singletary, you've got Robinson, you've got, Drake, Patterson, some of those guys in there. And then it allows you to get Jefferson and Gabe Davis and CeeDee Lamb and some of those guys. So I like it.
Okay. Let's see. FanDuel Cash, Dre, would you rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Knox or Gabe Davis and Nico Collins? I would not play Nico Collins in cash. That's my vote. Sorry.
No,
I agree.
Agreed.
All right, St. Brown and Knox it is. I mean, anyone could luck box into a touchdown, but I don't know what his floor is 0. It's a little scary there, Melrose. I'd go St. Brown and Knox. DK GPP, big GPP, Russell Wilson and Peoples-Jones, or Mariota and Garrett Wilson. Any thoughts?
I like both, honestly. It's kind of tough for me. I'd probably say the first one, but
I would say the first one too. The Russell Wilson.
Okay. Let's see. Let me jump over to YouTube chat for a little bit. We are scrolling through spam, folks. Let's see. Yes. Okay. FanDuel Cash from Rob. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brian Robinson, or Dameon Pierce and Cortland Sutton, Kristi.
Is this for FanDuel or DK?
Yep, FanDuel Cash. St. Brown and Brian Robinson, or Dameon Pierce and Cortland Sutton.
I'd say the first one.
Okay. Scrolling back through spam. Hold on. Any interest in Peoples-Jones or Amari Cooper, Dre? Like, how do you gauge your interest on those Browns receivers?
I like both of them. I probably would just say more so the Peoples-Jones, though. He's been more consistent for them.
Okay. Let's see here. Cooper or Moore? I'm assuming we're talking Amari Cooper and DJ Moore, Kristi. I think that's who it would be. There's no other Moores. Dre hates Moore, so I'll ask you, Cooper or Moore?
Yeah, I think I'd still go Cooper, though. I mean, he just has good upside in that game. Amari Cooper.
Right. Maybe I'll get off Cooper in the next 5 minutes. We'll see. Let's see. Chenault Jr. could be sneaky. Cortland Sutton. Anybody like Cortland Sutton? I don't have any of them. I only hand-built 3 teams, though. So what do you guys think on Cortland Sutton?
Yeah, I do like him. I think he's a great play. I have on my 3 teams, 3 main teams. I don't have him either, but I can see how you land there. It's a great spot.
Okay, cool. DK Cash question, Dre. I'll throw it over to you. Peoples-Jones and Dawson Knox, or Paris Campbell and Foster Moreau?
Peoples-Jones, Dawson Knox, or Foster. First one.
Okay. We're punting tight ends here for this question from Jason, Kristi. Mr. Stoll from Philadelphia, who should get some snaps without Goddard. Would you rather have Jake Stoll? I think it's Jake Stoll. It's bad when I don't even know his first name. I think it's Jake Stoll. Or Calcaterra. I don't even know his first name, but I know he's in the player pool because I saw it earlier.
I think I would go Stoll. I mean, he's certainly a good option with no Goddard in there. So if I was punting, that's who I would go for.
I like your call of the receivers getting a ton of volume, though. So I think the Devontae Smith call you had was pretty interesting. All right, Dre, I'll throw this one over to you. Stevenson and Kendall Hinton, or Brian Robinson Jr. and Garrett Wilson?
Stevenson, Kendall Hinton, or Brian Robinson. And who's the other one with Brian Robinson?
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that one.
All right, cool. St. Brown or Gabe Davis? Straight up, don't know what site, don't know what format, Kristi.
I'm all over Gabe Davis this week, so for me, I'm overweight on him. I'd go Gabe.
Cool. DKGPP from the Raiders in the chat, Dre. Would you rather have Drake and Cole Kmet or Dameon Pierce and Kendall Hinton?
Drake or Cole Kmet, or who else in Kendall Hinton?
Dameon Pierce.
Jake and Cole Kmet.
All right. FanDuel Cash question, Kristi. Cordell Patterson or Kenyon Drake?
Ooh. For cash, I'd probably go Drake, but I like them both. I think they're great plays.
Noel in the chat asked any Bengals wide receivers. Yeah, I think they're both, meaning Boyd and T. Higgins, I think are both in play because I kind of like Joe Burrow's price. And Hayden Hurst, too. I mean, there's still a void to fill here without Jamar Chase. And Pittsburgh's not great against the pass. So, yeah, fire up the Bengals receivers. DKGPP, Andre, I think I'm up to you. I can't remember. David Montgomery or Kenyon Drake straight up?
Oh, God, that's tough. I'm going to say, well, if it's GPP, I'm going to say Montgomery. Yeah, I'm going to say Montgomery, even though he's going to be more popular. Actually, no, he won't be that popular because everyone's going to be playing Fields. So, yeah, Montgomery.
Okay. DKGPP question for Kristi. 12:57, guys, start wrapping up. We'll try to go fast here. Tyler Boyd and Brian Robinson or Garrett Wilson and T. Higgins?
I think I would go Wilson and Higgins.
All right. Dre, over to you. 3v3 for DK Cash. Ramondre, McLaurin, and Dalton Schultz, who I like this week, by the way.
You said Ramondre and McLaurin or who and Schultz?
Nope, it's 3v3. Ramondre, McLaurin, and Schultz, or David Montgomery, CeeDee Lamb, and Dawson Knox.
First one.
Let's see. Knox or Greg Dulcich for PPR? Ooh, that's a tough one. Dawson Knox or Mr. Dulcich here?
I like Dulcich personally.
Okay. Hey, Kristi. Sorry, Kristi, didn't mean to cut you off. Kamara or Damian Pierce straight up on FanDuel?
Kamara. Definitely Kamara.
FanDuel, Van Jefferson or the SCO Show on the Rams, Dre? Which Rams receiver would you like to play, if any?
Van Jefferson or who?
Skolarek, the Notre Dame kid who's going to get some snaps for the Rams without Cooper Kupp.
That's tough. I probably would say Skolarich. Skolarich.
Cool. 12:58, guys, and the questions are popping off in the YouTube, so I don't want to take my eyes off it. Cortland Sutton or Terry McLaurin, Kristi?
McLaurin for me.
All right. Fields or Josh Allen, DKGPP? Dre.
Fields or who?
Josh Allen.
They're both going to be high owned. I'm going to go with Josh Allen, though.
Okay. FanDuel single entry flex spot. Brian Robinson or Scary Terry?
Robinson or Scary Terry? Terry.
All right. Man, 25 seconds to lock. So by the time the stream catches up, we will probably be there already. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Another great week here. What is your hottest take of the week, Dre? I want to hear something.
I really have no idea who I'm going to play right now. Crap, it doesn't matter. I think honestly it's going to be something off the board that wins. So I think either quarterback wise, it's going to be one of three guys: Marcus Mariota, Russell Wilson, or what's the third one that I like a lot? Or Joe Burrow. I think one of those three quarterbacks is going to be the one to have their stack win the slate today.
Cool. I like it. We have hit lock. Hey, Kristi, what's your prediction for the Vikings-Cowboys game? Since I know you'll be invested in that one.
I know, right? Exactly. I think the Vikings are going to pick up a good win again. I think Jefferson is going to I think he's going to have a couple touchdowns in that game, but I think the Vikings are going to win.
Cool. Dre, got a prediction for that one? It's probably one of the bigger games of the week.
I think the Vikings do continue to roll. I think they're going to win. The way to beat them is just to run the ball on the ground, keep the whatchamacallit in the box. Parsons from getting after Cousins here and play action pass to Jefferson for a nice little game for him too as well. So yeah, Vikings for me, they're the best team, probably second best team in the NFC, behind probably San Francisco. But yeah.
Cool. Well, another Sunday in the books. Anything else before we get out of here, guys?
No, good luck. And I can't even say I'm going to win today because football is just so random.
Love it.
I hope everyone wins, though. I hope everyone cashes and makes more than what they had today.
That's the goal. Go in a Sunday night showdown with a little green in your pocket. So
that's right.
Yes.
We will aim for that. We hope this helped you guys, and we hope all of our program on a Sunday is awesome. I love coming in a little early, let's catch the tail end of whatever Ebeimfohr was talking about. Squirrel gave some good stuff. So, producer Steve, long morning here. We appreciate you too, buddy, and we're gonna head out. So, for Steve and Dre and Kristi, I'm Justin. Good luck and have a good Sunday.